This is a story about my mother's mill. With very few exceptions, all my life I was hated by both my mother's and father's families and my sister. I don't mean disliked or ignored. I mean actively hated and treated like it, usually brutally. I wasn't much liked by my parents either. I always figured I was either serial killer, bad in a previous life, or the gods of fate decided to screw with me to see if I could take it. The family's hatred was so obvious that people often asked me what I did that made my family hate me so much. In my teens, I got really tired of that question. So I'd look at them and sarcastically say, I was born. Now, fortunately, someone up there took pity on me, because they also gave me some of the best people in the world. My grandparents GM and GF1, GF2, my stepdad, and my brother. These were my lifesavers and my guideposts. I didn't start really understanding the whys of certain events in my life and familial relationships until 2 days after my wedding in 1992. I was 26 years old with 2 children of my own and a brand new husband and stepson. On that day, due to everything that happened leading up to my wedding, and after, I kind of broke down. I was a mess. My grandmother took me out for coffee and a long walk along the river. She said she had some things to explain to me, and I was to listen. She had lots of splaining to do. My parents had a shotgun wedding when both were very young. This was mostly due to religious reasons. Mom's family is all Mormon. As in, GF1's family came west with Joseph Smith, and was one of his 12 apostles Mormon. Both my sister and brother were blessed in the church. This is extremely important. Blessings in the LDS church mean not only acceptance of a child by the church, but forcing family members to accept the child. Mom stopped going to church before she got pregnant with me, but still allowed both my sister and brother to go with my grandparents. My father's parents were divorced when my father was young, I think early teens. Satan's queen, the father's mother, is a hellish woman. She actually said that she believes Satan is too soft on sinners. Some of her favorite things to do include inventing torture techniques and apparatuses to use on children. The harsher, the better. She hates anything and everything to do with GF2, her ex-husband, especially the fact that he's Native American. When Satan's queen found out that Mom was pregnant again for the 3rd time, she was livid. She went over to my parents' house, started berating my mom, and demanded that Mom fix it, or she would. Satan's queen didn't need any more disgusting half-breeds around. She had been telling Mom to divorce that piece of garbage since they had my sister. But Mom didn't listen, and now she's bringing more garbage into the world. Side note. This was in 1966. Abortions were not just illegal, but also extremely dangerous. After she got done with Mom, Satan's queen then went to my grandparents and said the same thing to GM. She even went so far to tell GM that the only reason she married GF2 was to upset her father because her father wouldn't take her to England. She only stayed with him so long because she got pregnant 3 times. She hates stinking Indians and wasn't going to deal with another one. That she was willing to handle taking out the trash. Then she stormed off. GM was appalled and shell-shocked. Isn't Satan's queen delightful? A few months passed, and GF2 went to my parents and made a request. He was 85 years old, and since this was going to be his last grandchild, Mom already said it was the last one to everyone, and his other grandchildren were the same age as my father or older. He would like to raise this child me with his beliefs and religion. My parents talked it over with each other and with my grandparents, and everyone thought it was good and agreed. GF2 was thrilled. Cue. Black clouds rolling in. Thunder. Lightning. The end of the world. Satan's queen's reaction. I'll kill that little bastard before its first breath, before I'd let that happen. GF2 heard about that, and informed Satan's queen that he had no problem ending her life if she ever touched this baby. Satan's queen apparently believed him. My father told me this part. Mom's brothers, sisters, aunts, and uncles' reaction. Oh, how terrible. You can't do that. We can't have a heathen in the family. It'll go to hell. What an awful thing to do to a poor baby. Maybe it won't live long. We'll have to convert it, or at least have it blessed. We can't have an Indian brat around our children. You know how they are. It'll grow up a savage. In case you can't tell, Mormons aren't fond of Native Americans. GM and GF1 listened to this for about 2 minutes. Then GF1 stood up, all 6'4" and 300 pounds of muscle, and yelled out, "That's enough. If I hear one more bad thing said about this baby, GF2, or any Indian, I will ban you from the family. Is that clear? You will apologize now." He could and would do it too. Nothing more was ever said by the family out loud in front of my grandparents. This part was told to me by my mom. GM just said that they all just reacted badly and were deeply offended that a child of the family wasn't going to be Mormon. More months go by, and my much debated and dejected arrival comes to pass. GF2 has my brother, while Satan's queen has my sister. Satan's queen adored sister. She looked like her late daughter. My mother is in the recovery room, exhausted from being in labor for 3 days and finally delivering by C-section. My grandparents and father had just gone home. The phone rings. It's Mom's best friend, Cheryl. Cheryl. Mom, Have you or your parents heard anything from Satan's queen? Mom. No, I don't think so. Cheryl. Call GF1 right now and have him go pick up sister. She'll be okay, but do it now. Mom immediately calls GM and GF1 and tells them what Cheryl said. GM and GF1 drive like a bat out of hell the 50 miles over there. Race into the house, calling my sister's name, and was greeted by a cackling Satan's queen. What they find makes GM and GF1 cry. There was my 3.5-year-old sister lying on the floor, crying in her sleep, filthy, holding onto a large piece of meat fat. While GM was lifting her, sister woke up and started screaming and crying in terror. She fought to be put down, hitting and kicking at GM. GF1 finally had to take hold of her and take her to the car. Sister continued to scream, hit, and kick, so GF1 stayed in the back seat with her. This was before car seats. Satan's queen continued to cackle the entire time. Satan's queen yelled out, "She's mine now." It took my grandparents 2 days to get my sister to eat, 4 days of coaxing to get her to take a bath or sleep in a bed without screams, kicking, and hitting, and another 3 days before they were able to get her to tell them what happened at Satan's queen's house. Satan's queen told a 3.5-year-old child that my mom was replacing her with a new baby, that she wasn't wanted anymore, that either mom, my father, or my grandparents were going to kill sister, that they were going to poison or drown her in the bath or smother her in her sleep. Maybe they would just leave her out in the desert for an animal to kill her. GM believes that sister remembers this somewhere in her heart and mind. Satan's queen wins Best Mother-in-Law and Grandmother Award. Yeah, no. Now some of you are probably wondering why GM, a woman that I say loves me and is one of the best, would tell me these things. Well, the reason is because she realized it was time for me to cut certain people out of my life. With her blessing and backing, she had had enough of how they treated me and mine. For 2 months prior to my wedding, my husband and I had been bombarded with calls and drop-in visits from various family members telling me how awful I am, what a terrible man he is, that he's an abuser he wasn't, and that I had no right not to include my sister in my wedding. In addition, the day before my wedding, the family and sister ambushed me at mom's house to order me to have a sister at my wedding since a sister is a true member of the family, indicating I'm not. GM shut that down immediately. In retaliation, my darling and loving sister destroyed all my decorations and vandalized the church. So there you have it. The beginnings of Just No Mill and why I'm hated by my family. I was born. Update. Gorilla Tales. Scarface Mill in the Wild-ish and the naming. If this doesn't belong here, I'll be happy to delete. A few weeks ago, my brother came to me and asked me to help his soon-to-be ex-wife's niece with her wedding. Poor girl is desperate. For any of you who have read my posts of Hellbeast and her minions on another subreddit, I'm sure you can understand why my first reaction was, are you freaking kidding me? Hell, no. Even 9 months later, I keep a shotgun by the front door with a shoot first, ask no questions mentality if they or any of their family or friends ever show up here again. So brother sits me down and explains that his niece only has one single person in her family, from either side, who can help her or attend her wedding him. That's it. No one else. Since she applied to and was accepted by the local police academy, she is unable to have contact with her mother, who is currently in prison, nor her aunt, uncle, or cousins, as they are all under indictment for felony charges. Most charges were brought by me. Her father and his family are on another continent, and she hasn't seen or heard from him in years. She's a sweet and kind girl. She really needs our help. Her F-Mill has taken over all the wedding planning, changed the date, and won't listen to anything her niece wants. She needs a wedding planner and someone to stick up for her. Sigh. I've been reading way too much Just No Mill. Damn. Fine. I'll help, but I'm not happy about it. So I grudgingly call up my niece the next day, find out what she wants for her wedding. She seems decent, and was very grateful for my brothers, and my help so far, so good. She and FDH are Wiccan, but F-Mill demands that the wedding be in a church currently booked in a Lutheran church. They initially wanted it on the winter solstice, but that's on a Wednesday, and so few people could come, so they decided on Christmas Eve, which is a Saturday. F-Mill changed it to Monday, the 26th during the day, so even fewer of their friends could come. They want a winter theme, but not a Christmas theme, which is what F-Mill is trying to do. That is, 8 Christmas trees at the reception hall, Christmas trees on invites, red and green decorations, Santa centerpieces, a cross cake, wow, really, etc. It's important to note that niece and FDH are paying for their own wedding and reception. Ills are paying for nothing. So anyways, I offer up a couple of ideas that, it turns out, she likes and set a date for brother, myself, her, FDH, and F-Mill to meet up at my house and discuss ideas. Before the meeting, I spent some time thinking up ideas, making a few phone calls, copying pictures, getting catering menus, and searching the internet. I've planned 100 or 200 parties in my time, so I already have a spreadsheet and list of contacts of what needs to be done. On the day of the meeting, niece and FDH come over a bit early to meet me. I've only seen this girl 3 or 4 times in her life, get comfortable, and go over the ideas. They loved the idea that I had for the church and color scheme. Spoiler alert, not at the Lutheran church. F. Mill finally arrives. 45 minutes late. Oh, she's going to be like that, is she? This is going to be fun. Meet Scarface. Because she looks like Al Pacino. Beard and all. Niece opens the door and introduces my brother and myself. Scarface, with her sour puss face, looks around my home and says, "Your home is..." Long arse pause. "Nice. I live in a middle-class neighborhood and my house is very nice." Me smiling sweetly. "Yes, it is. Thank you." And ask her to sit down. Scarface sits gingerly on my beautiful new couch like it's got fleas in it. "Oh, B, you have no idea that you've met a master." We're sitting at the table. That's where everything is. I have a great room. She could easily see my laptop, file folders, and papers. B wanted to be difficult. Scarface goes from sourpuss to cat butt face and grudgingly walks over. Sits down, all the while looking at my dining set like it's a trough. It's mahogany wood with wood and leather captain's chairs. My brother is starting to grind his teeth. He hates it when people are rude. Niece and FDH are looking nervous. Scarface frowning and irritated. I don't know why we have to go over everything. Me now sickeningly sweet and chipper. Because Niece and FDH want their wedding a certain way, and they wanted to keep you in the loop. Isn't that kind of them? Fortunately, since you were so late, we just need to show you the details. The decisions have all been made. You don't have to worry about a thing. Scarface pissed off. What do you mean? The decisions were made before. I approved them myself. Why are either of you involved in this anyway? She approved them. I figured she would be that way. Me chidingly sweet, but now ultra chipper. Since my niece is attending the academy starting in September, she needed someone in her family to help her and FDH with the details. That's something I'm very good at. Neither she nor FDH have to worry about anything. And neither will you. At all. Isn't that great? Now about the wedding. Scarface starts sputtering. FDH coaxing. Mom, please. Just listen to what she has to say. I think you'll like everything we came up with. I know she won't. Haha. Scarface still pissed off. Fine. Me back to sickeningly sweet. Since Niece and FDH are Wiccan, I really felt that the decorations and color schemes were too Christmassy, so I came up with a better idea. We're going with a winter wonderland theme with silver and white as the colors. The wedding is going to be on December 24th at 3 p.m. I love afternoon weddings, don't you? Scarface condescendingly. My church isn't available on the 24th. We have it booked for the 26th. Me dismissively and Uber chipper. Oh, I know, but the church I found is available for the 23rd and 24th. They'll be able to decorate early and not have to worry about it on their wedding day. It's a perfect choice for nieces and FDH because, while it's a church, it's also non-denomination, and they can have their priestess marry them. It's beautiful with stained glass windows and was built in 1866. Not only that, but it only costs $300 for 2 days instead of the $1,100. Your church is charging them for only 1 day. And the priestess is only going to charge them $75 instead of the $300 your pastor was charging them. Scarface still condescendingly. We've already booked my church and the pastor's time and paid for them. I know. I also called your pastor and found out that all they have to do is cancel the booking by the end of this month, and they get their entire fee returned. I was so happy to find that out. Wow, they are able to save $800 on the church. Another $225 for your pastor and have it on the day they want it on. It's perfect. And the money they save can be put to better use elsewhere. Q. Combo of sourpuss and cat butt face. I didn't know that was possible until then. During the rest of the meeting, F. Mill finds out I've changed everything else. Reception location, invites, flowers, decorations, music, number of guests they want small and intimate, cake, menu, etc. I continue being sweet as can be to Scarface and continue to speak in a happy and cheerful tone. Niece and FDH are making excited comments about everything. My brother isn't saying much besides, looks good. And I can make that happen as needed. Scarface gets madder and madder and can only sputter. I didn't let her say anything and either interrupted her or just talked over her in a sugary, sweet, and chipper voice. Until the end of the meeting. Niece and FDH are getting ready to leave. They both thank my brother and myself and start walking to the door. Scarface stands up and screams at everyone. This is not the wedding I want. Dead. Silence. Big brother deadpan. It's not your wedding, and you're not paying for it. It doesn't matter what you want. Then he hustles the kids outside. Me smiling and trying not to snicker. It was nice meeting you. Scarface storms out without a word. The next day, I'm watching Tarzan and semi-thinking about this meeting with Scarface, my wedding, and how to write my last post on GNM. I'm at the part of the movie where the silverback gorillas are huffing, puffing, grunting, throwing things, and chest pounding. Realization dawns. I start laughing so hard and loud that my brother comes out to see what I'm laughing about. I point to the TV and keep laughing. When I finally catch my breath, I rewind to that portion and ask him, "Isn't that what Scarface and the family look like at every get-together?" My brother agrees and starts laughing too. That's how I got the Gorilla Tales name. Elmo. Update. Gorilla Tales. Scarface Mill in the Wild-ish Update Part 1. I apologize for the delay in updating, but I feared if I had started writing anything down, I'd go ballistic on Scarface. She certainly knows how to make an impact. To add insult to injury, I'm sick and my computer died, so I'm on mobile. So when we left off, I had agreed to help my big bro's niece with her wedding planning CB bot. F-Mill Scarface wasn't happy. I had changed everything to what the kids wanted. NFG. Scarface spent the first 2 weeks after our meeting sending a barrage of emails and texts and calling 10 to 15 times a day. Most of this was demanding changes. The problems I had with this are: everything was decided. B. She has lousy taste and is cheap. C. I have a life and work. D. I am doing this as a favor to Big Bro. E. She only had one thing to do: get me her guest list. Calls were ignored. Texts were answered with no. C. I learned from you that no is a complete sentence. Now I will admit I had some fun with the emails I answered. I got out my trusty thesaurus, looked up the word tacky, and enjoyed myself. That won't work at all. We're going for understated elegance, not crass. I'm afraid that would be too gaudy. That's frumpy, not elegant. Scarface wasn't nearly as amused as I was. Oops. The wedding was only 3 months away, so we were on a time crunch for everything. Not to mention, niece was joining the police academy in 3 weeks, so her time was extremely limited. We needed to secure and pay for both venues, send out invitations, confirm food, cake, wardrobe, music, etc. So after 2 weeks and asking repeatedly, I sent Scarface an email on a Friday stating I needed her guest list by Monday at 3 p.m. or her invites wouldn't go out. At all. Monday arrived. I get a guest list for 200 people plus children. The entire wedding is only 100 people. So no, that won't work. I respond back. Please reduce your guest list to 30 people, including children. I still need this by 3 p.m. today, or your invites won't go out. Cue calls, texts, and emails to me, niece, and FDH. Oh, the wailing that could be heard. I had enough. I respond. Scarface, you and F-Phil are allotted 30 guests, including children. These 30 guests are being paid for by niece and FDH. If you chose to invite more than 30 people, then you will need to pay $175,000 for each additional person. Your guest list and check for each additional guest will need to be to me at home address by 3 p.m. today. There will not be any extensions or further discussions on this matter. 3 p.m. arrives, as does Scarface's guest list for 30 people. Big Bro, niece, FDH, and I all get a good laugh. I should have known she wouldn't go down that easy. Update. Gorilla Tales. Scarface Mill in the Wild-ish Update Part 2. Scarface was down, but I knew she wasn't out. I was so right. Scarface decided she needed to go back to being a bulldozer again. It seemed to have worked so well for her before I came along. Scarface wanted niece to wear her old wedding dress, so she took it over to niece and FDH's house, exclaiming on and on about how excited she was to pass it on, and how she can't wait to see it on her. She asked niece to promise to wear it. How heartbroken she'd be if niece didn't. Poor niece was appalled at the creation, not her style at all, and didn't know what to do. Even FDH didn't like the dress. Uncle Big Bro to the rescue. Big Bro calmed niece down and decided to do a little bulldozing of his own. He called Scarface and talked excitedly about how important niece was to him. He was looking forward to walking niece down the aisle. That he was so moved when niece asked him, he actually cried. As her only relative, he was looking forward to taking niece dress shopping. Niece should have a new dress for her new life. So happy Scarface understands how important these things are to a bride. Don't we all want the bride and groom happy on their wedding day? Scarface couldn't argue too much without looking like a big B to her son, so she backed off. Big Bro and niece did go shopping, and she got a beautiful outfit. It was perfect for her, and the winter wonderland theme. Scarface's next move was to contact the vendors directly. She tried to cancel the church and reception venue. Change the flowers from gardenias and roses in mercury glass cauldrons to daisies in bud vases. Change the linens from white with silver overlays to red and green. Change the 3-tier cake with a clay dog design to a cross cake. What is with her and cross cakes? Remove the vegan selections from the menu. And, finally, cancel the limos. Each vendor told her the same thing. I'm sorry, Scarface. We can't do that. Only OP is allowed to make any changes. You'll have to speak to her. She screamed long and loud. I'm the groom's mother. You can't say no to me. I demand you change this item. You won't receive 1 dime for original item. I'll make sure of it. B, please. Oh, that pissed off Scarface to no end. Steam was rising. Fire was being breathed. She was being thwarted at every turn. She had no control. Her little mind just raced. Scarface decided. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. Bad Scarface. She really shouldn't have gone there. I'm in my room working. Big Bro is in the garage waxing the 3-foot candlesticks he made for Niece and FDH's wedding altar. Seriously, give that man a piece of wood, and he's an artist. A car pulls up. Tires screech. Out comes Big Bro's soon-to-be ex-wife, her kids, and her brother. See Hellbeast and her minions posts. They start pounding and kicking on the locked front door and garage door. They are all yelling and screaming. Effing CNT, bastard, playing God. B just has to take over everything. Not going to be pushed out of Niece's life, etc. Big Bro races to the front door, grabs the shotgun before I could, the jerk, and yells and throws the door at them to leave. I call 911 and my attorney, because I don't talk to the police without him around anymore. They continue to scream while trying to break down the door. Soon-to-be ex-wife gets fed up and picks up a boulder and hurls it through my kitchen window. Her kids follow suit with some large rocks, breaking 2 more windows. I'm pissed, and Big Bro is refusing to let me have the shotgun. Police finally arrive. Soon-to-be ex-Bill tries to drive off without her soon-to-be ex-wife or her kids, but is stopped and detained. Not the first time he's had a gun drawn on him. He has a long criminal history. After a lot of scuffling and screaming, the soon-to-be ex-wife and her kids are detained and handcuffed. My attorney arrives. Neighbors are flocking outside to see the show. I just love that. It's not at all embarrassing. An attorney and an officer come inside to find out what happened. Big Bro tells them. I show them the security footage. They both take pictures of the damage, gather evidence, take statements, etc. The attorney advises the officer that we have restraining orders against the soon-to-be ex-wife and her kids. They are out on bail and are probably drugged up. We want them arrested. Attorney goes outside with officer and finds out some interesting things. The soon-to-be ex-wife is her normal self and puts all the blame on someone else. Scarface. Scarface apparently had gone to the prison to meet Niece's mom and enlist her aid to force Niece and FDH to change the wedding to what she wants. Niece's mom had Scarface contact his soon-to-be ex-wife to intervene. She did. The soon-to-be wife was only doing what Scarface wanted. It's Big Bro and my fault that things got so out of hand. We should have opened the door. Yeah, like that would ever happen. Bad Scarface. The results weren't exactly what Scarface expected. Attorney filed an emergency RO against Scarface, which we got. Then he filed a civil suit against her for the windows and mental anguish. To top it off, at the attorney's recommendation, she got arrested for conspiracy to commit bodily harm, harassment, vandalism, and witness tampering. Poor Scarface. On the upside, the soon-to-be ex-wife and her kids' bail was revoked witness tampering. So now all 3 are sitting in jail awaiting their trials for the old and new charges. Mad laughter from me. On the downside, Niece and FDH have to decide if they want to continue to work with me. I can't have anything to do with Scarface. Update. Gorilla Tales. Scarface Mill in the Wild-ish Update Part 3 long. Prior to Scarface's ill-advised decision to push every button I have seen last post, a few things occurred. Niece entered the police academy. They do not allow cell phones. Because of Scarface's constant barrage of calls, FDH was required to turn his cell phone off, or was going to be fired. Phil was in another state for work. This is not good because my town doesn't have a lot of flights going in or out. After the incident, I had not had an opportunity to speak with Niece or FDH. I had only been able to leave a message to call me regarding Scarface. The police were very nice. They waited until the morning after the incident and got the warrant to actually arrest Scarface. I could only imagine Scarface's expression as she's arrested in front of all her delightful neighbors and fellow congregants. From what I was told, most of the charges against Scarface had set bail amounts. That means she would have gone in, been processed, and been out in 2 hours. Except, witness tampering requires a hearing in front of a judge to determine if she can even get bail. Poor Scarface. What all this boils down to is Scarface spending almost 36 hours in our lovely jail. Mostly because she was unable to get a hold of anyone to post her bonds until after court closed at 5 p.m. I also found out she was very demanding while in jail. Yeah, that works. So they took their sweet time releasing her. In case you're wondering, I'm still giggling like a schoolgirl about it. Hope you all enjoy a laugh at it too. So on to our story. I had finally gotten a hold of Niece and FDH on the night Scarface got out of jail and gave them the Cliff Notes version of what happened. Big Bro and I were still very angry. I didn't come right out and say, FDH, your mother is a flipping CNT, but the sentiment was there. FDH wasn't really happy either. After all, we did have his mother arrested. Poor Niece was confused and shocked. I arranged a meeting for the next Sunday. This gave us all several days to cool off and have clearer heads. Sunday. Big Bro and I are set for the meeting. We've calmed down. This isn't Nice or FDH's fault. We'll do whatever they want. If they want me to bow out, I will. Big Bro will finish the candlesticks, the wedding arch, and a few other small things he's crafting for them. I'll still do the projects I've agreed to do if they want me to. If not, that's okay. No hard feelings. We were expecting just about anything. We were not expecting one thing. 2 p.m. arrived. I'm in the kitchen and see Nice and FDH pull up through my new windows and get out of the car. I see another car pull up behind them, and a man gets out of the car and joins up with them. I have no idea who he is, but I'm instantly on guard. I give Big Bro the heads up and let him answer the door. I've mentioned in various comments that Big Brother can be a bit scary when he wants to be. He looks like Hulk Hogan in his prime, only shorter, and is still in excellent shape. Big Bro opens the door, stands there with his arms crossed, stone-faced, blocking entry. I stand several feet behind him, wary but also stone-faced. Neither of us speaks. FDH and the unknown man stop about 10 feet from our door. Thoroughly intimidated. They don't say a word. Nice not at all intimidated. She knows her Uncle Big Bro rushes up to give him a hug and introduces the unknown man. Phil. Nope. We didn't see that coming at all. I went from guarded to pissed in a single second. Pretty sure Big Bro did the same because FDH and Phil each took a step back. Phil must have more balls than brains because he steps forward and asks us to please let him come in. He only wants to talk for a few minutes, and it needs to be done in person. Big Bro looks at me. I nod okay, but don't say anything. He doesn't say a word either. He just steps aside. FDH and Phil come in. Nice races back to her car and comes in with a lemon cake, my favorite. Great. Now you want me to play gracious hostess too? Yeah? No, not going to happen now. I nod a thanks, but don't say anything. Everyone is silent as I put the cake down on the kitchen island. Without saying a word, I gesture for them to sit at the table. Big Bro sits at the head of the table. I sit at the other. We both have spines straight, arms crossed, and stone faces on. Neither of us says anything. We just look at Phil. Nice, FDH, and Phil aren't speaking either. They look back and forth at each other, trying to figure out what to do next. All three are very uncomfortable. Nice and FDH have only experienced warmth and friendliness from either of us, so this is unsettling to them. You could hear a fly burp anywhere in the house. After what seems forever, but was only about 10 minutes, Phil squirms, clears his throat several times, then decides to brave the two angry polar bears. Does it feel a bit glacial in here? Phil apologizes profusely for Scarface's behavior and actions. He wants to make things right. He travels a lot, and was unaware of what antics she had been up to until the day before at the meeting with Nice and FDH. He was appalled that Scarface had been trying to sabotage not just the wedding, but also Nice and FDH's relationship. She had been lying to him for months about FDH, Nice, the wedding, my and Big Bro's reason for being so involved, and many other things. She even lied about her involvement in the incident. Gee, shock, not. Phil states that he wants to pay in full for the windows, and my attorney's time, while involved in this. He wants to do it today. FDH offers his own apology. He also had no idea how bad she had been. At this point, Nice is looking infuriated, while Phil and FDH are both looking dejected and disgusted. Both Big Bro and I are feeling sorry for them. Warming up to them again, I smile, thank them both, and call my attorney. I ask him to come over with settlement papers and his latest invoice regarding the incident. While waiting for my attorney to arrive, I offer coffee and cake. I feel I can be cordial now. Nice, FDH, and Phil proceed to tell us about what happened before the meeting, and the meeting they had with Scarface. FDH said that what Scarface told him, and what I told him were two very different stories. Scarface denied trying to cancel the venues or make changes to the decor. She denied going to the prison to see Nice's mom. She denied going to see her soon-to-be ex-wife. She denied encouraging them to come over. She denied asking them to intervene and stop us from helping with the wedding. Nice didn't believe her. You can't get a warrant on someone without some proof. Not even in this state. But FDH needed convincing. With just a few phone calls, including to vendors and one to my attorney, his number was on the lawsuit, who offered him physical proof. FDH found out Scarface lied to him about everything. So the day before, Nice and FDH went to talk to Scarface. Phil just happened to be there. FDH calmly asked Scarface to explain again in front of Phil why she was arrested. Scarface tearfully lied again and denied doing anything. Big Bro and I were the ones lying. When he calmly asked about her contacting the vendors and trying to cancel the venues, she cried some more, lied, and denied again. FDH exploded at Scarface. He told her he knew she was lying, that he had contacted the vendors and the venues himself. He told her that my attorney had also given a copy of the police report and proof of her involvement in her soon-to-be ex-wife's and minion's attack. Why would she do that? Tears dried up, and venom spilled out. I did it for you. You have to get away from her. I didn't know what else to do. Nothing else was working. It's all her niece's fault. If she hadn't come around, everything would be fine. She changed you. You used to be such a good boy. She dragged you away from being a good Christian and turned you into a wild heathen. I know you don't believe that crap. You can't believe it. You were raised right. She won't even be a good wife. She's going to be a cop. She can't be a wife and a cop. She just wants to legally shoot someone. And look at her family. All junkies and drug dealers. Animals, all of them. You can't marry her. You don't want your children to be animals, do you? FDH and niece just walked out without a word. He's not sure if he ever wants to talk to her again. FDH had years in his eyes, as he was telling is this. So did F. Phil. Can anyone say? Wow. At this point, my attorney arrives. I introduce him around. He sits in the living room with F. Phil, while Big Bro and I continue to talk to niece and FDH. We try to console them, but it's really not doing much good. F. Phil turns around and asks me and Big Bro for the invoice for our time at the wedding. I inform him that we're doing it as a favor to niece. Big Bro is her uncle. Okay, a little mean, but I wasn't feeling very nice. He says he knows, but he wants to pay for labor and materials. I thank him, but say no. Big Bro says thanks, but no. 20 minutes later, F. Phil and attorney are done signing papers. The check is signed and handed over. F. Phil apologizes again to Big Bro and myself and leaves. Frankly, I'm just happy I don't have to deal with a lawsuit or collect a judgment. The attorney asks to speak to me for a second. We go into my office. He shows me the check for the settlement. It's quite a bit more than what I expected. Then he hands me 2 more checks, one for Big Bro and one for me. The attorney told me to take it. F. Phil feels really awful about all the stuff I had to deal with and wants to make amends. He said F. Phil also asked him for the name of a good family law attorney. Holy SHT, Batman. That is a surprise. Attorney takes his leave. I go out to settle things with niece and FDH. This is getting too long, so I'm going to break it up. Update. Gorilla Tales. Rabbits for Despicable Ma and the Long Game. I've been calling my mother, Mother Dearest in the comments, but I've decided to name her Despicable Ma DM for short. It's so appropriate. I wish I could tell you why, but that would give me away completely. I posted some of this story in a comment, but decided to expand it for your llama's enjoyment. A little backstory is needed. DM and stepdad had stopped living together about 4 years prior. DM spent 4 to 5 nights a week at his house, while I lived in her apartment. My entire life, Despicable Ma always had some little negative or competitive comment to make about anything I did. She nitpicked everything. Nothing I did was ever really good enough. There was always a flaw. As a little kid, I called this her yes, but response. As I got older, yes, but morphed into yeah but, and then into yeah but rabbit. Then just rabbit. The year I was 17 years old, Easter was coming, and she was having some of her family over along with my dad's parents. My jobs were to granite clean the house, its extensive cleaning, decorate, and make Easter dinner. When Easter Sunday arrives, DM and Dad show up about 11 am. The house is clean. I had spent a week on it. Ham is in the oven on a slow cook. The rest of the dinner is prepped and ready to cook. The house is nicely decorated. Dad gives me a hug and tells me how good it looks and smells. DM. Yes, everything looks great, but damn rabbit ruins it again. Where's the cake? Didn't you make a cake? We have to have a cake on Easter. So I go into the kitchen, and while I'm pissed off baking the cake, I'm muttering to myself about effing rabbits and steaming. A little devil must have been riding on my shoulder. A light dawns. Humor is found. I take extra care while decorating the cake. I have honestly never taken so much time decorating a cake. I drew out and colored in a perfect rabbit for the top. DM loved it. But shouldn't I have used black for the outline instead of blue? From then on, I started putting rabbits on everything, or making them into everything, just for her. Everyone, all her family and friends knew that if a piece of cake had a rabbit on it, that was DM's. Cookie or other baked items, same thing. I gave them to her as presents and embroidered them on linens. I bought a china plate setting and cup with them to keep at my house. My sons even started giving her things with rabbits on them. She had rabbits all over her house. All of it. Just for her. DM. I never really liked rabbits until you made them special for me. 30 years passed. A lot of things occur. DM and Dad split up. I had gone NC 10 years. DM gets married again. She changes a lot due to the new stepdad. We all start talking again. No more rabbits to be heard. I move in with them due to their extreme illnesses. New stepdad passed. DM reverts to her old self within days. Rabbits are coming out of the woodwork. I'm trying to be understanding, but it seriously stinks. That special Christmas, Stepdad had only been gone a short time. I make DM the dinner she wanted, exactly the way she asked it to be cooked. She nitpicked it down to the salt and pepper shakers not being the right ones. Me irritated, and not really thinking. Really, DM? You're going to rabbit everything? I worked hard on this. DM snide. What do you mean by rabbit? Me Oops. Well, in for a penny. Might as well go for the pound. Rabbit. Yes, it was nice, but could have been better. Yeah, but, rabbit. You used to do it all the time but stop. Now you're doing it again. It's one of the reasons we went NC, remember? DM realization dawns. You mean all these years you've been giving me things with rabbits on them as a way of getting me back for criticizing you? Me. Yep. It also made it so I wasn't mad at you all the time. Less than 2 weeks later, I move out and go NC again. When DM passed away 4 months later, not one rabbit was found in her house. Not even her Easter decorations had rabbits. I guess she decides she doesn't like rabbits after all. Update. Gorilla Tales. Despicable Maw. From Beyond the Grave. I have to get this off my chest or explode. Despicable Maw died 3 years ago. Seriously, one of the thoughts I had back then was, at least she can't hurt anyone anymore. How wrong I was. Before Despicable Maw died, she was getting rid of anything that reminded her of me and my oldest son. That's a story of its own. My youngest son was here at the time on leave from the Navy and took several boxes that he thought might be important. He then took them to his father's house and promptly forgot about them. Until a few weeks ago. So my oldest son and Dill bring home the boxes, and we start going through them. My rage at what I find. For years and years that effing CNT had been systematically stealing all of my keepsakes of my children's lives. His hospital birth certificate and blessing christening certificate. The blanket, hat, and ID band from when he was born and brought home. His baby book. She even crossed out what I wrote and put in her own comments. His blessing outfit. Made by my grandmother. She even made the lace on it. The cards and gifts for him from my best friend, who was killed in an accident when he was 3 weeks old. His baby blanket that was made by my grandmother. His handprints that I did every year. Pictures of all his important moments, including the only ones that had my best friend and him together in them. Cards and letters from him to me. And so many more things. There were 4 large boxes. I called my youngest son. The same things were in his boxes. My keepsakes of his life. She took his too. I had thought I had just lost some of them. Some I thought I had still. Nope. That woman came into my home and stole from me. She stole from me even after I had thought she had changed. She stole from me while trying to have a relationship with me after being NC with her for 10 damn years. She stole from me during the one and only visit she made when I lived in Florida. She stole from me while I left my life there to come help her because she was so ill. I was stupid to ever break NC. I was stupid to think she had changed in the slightest. The worst part is, I can't even look at or think about those moments without getting furious. So a warning to those parents out there that have just knows. Make sure your keepsakes are under lock and key. Update. Gorilla Tales. The Despicable Maw and My First Pregnancy. Gorilla Tales. The Despicable Maw and My First Pregnancy. Get a glass of your favorite beverage and some popcorn. Enjoy my tale from long ago. When I was 19 years old, I found out I was pregnant. Despicable Maw had taken me to the hospital with a 103 degrees fever. It was April Fool's Day. I thought the doctor was joking. He wasn't. Oh, yeah, you also have the flu. I banged my head against a wall a few times. It didn't help. Despicable Maw's response. I guess we have a wedding to plan. Mine. No. I think I need to decide what I'm going to do. Despicable Maw. You are going to get married. It's the only thing you can do. Actually, I have several options. I'll let you know what I decide. That did not go over well for numerous reasons. Much yelling was done by her in the car to my home. I was never so happy to see my home and get away from her. DM then proceeded to her home to inform my dad of my condition. She didn't like his response at all. Dad, you will lay off halfway gonna to. This is her life and decision, and you won't interfere or push her into doing anything she doesn't want to do. My dad is actually my stepdad. He raised me from the time I was 4 years old. Despicable Maw wasn't afraid of my dad, but she had a healthy respect for him. He was not an enabler. Despicable Maw wasn't going to be halted that easily. So she contacts my grandparents, very religious aunts and uncles to force me into doing the right thing. Which was ironic coming from her. Her and dad weren't legally married but lived together. My grandparents' response was the same as my dad's. Thankfully, I really respect my grandparents' opinion of me. They were the ones who basically raised me besides my dad. My grandmother only called me to offer support, see how I was feeling, and to ask if I needed her to come take care of me while I was sick. I really love my granny. My aunts and uncles I just hung up on. You are such a disrespectful girl. Yes, I am. especially when I'm sick. Leave me the hell alone. Granny and Papa told the aunts and uncles to lay off me or else. 11 days later was my 20th birthday. All I got were baby things and wedding items. Except for my dad and grandparents, neither was happy with DM for trying to force the issue. Being the stubborn cuss I am, I gave DM a dirty look and left the party and gifts there. Despicable Ma's response. How rude of you. After all the trouble I went through. I wasn't being rude. I left before I said something you might regret. Sometime later, I decided to keep my baby and not get married. I was the first person in the family to have a child out of wedlock. Yeah, that went over like a lead balloon with my ultra-religious family. Despicable Ma. I had to get married when I got pregnant, so you have to also. The family is devastated over this. You are ruining the family's name. You're embarrassing them. This was said over and over. Me. No. I really don't have to. Don't care what they or others think. Nice try though. Time progresses. I have an extremely easy pregnancy. Despicable Ma pulls some stunts, especially during each of my 6 baby showers, yes, 6 of them. Which I'll post later about later, but is overall not bad enough to make me kill her. She continued to try to get me to get married until I told her to stop, or I wouldn't ever speak to her again, and she would never see my child. She believed me. She stopped. I start looking for a new place to live because I had a roommate. And that's not going to work out living there with a baby. I'm also working 3 jobs, sometimes 4, so having the time to look was very limited. Despicable Ma to the rescue. Her next door neighbor was snowbirding it for 6 months and needed a house sitter. Being single, I would also need extra help with a new baby. Yeah, I was an idiot. September comes. A week before my due date, my dad and I pack up my stuff, move it into storage except clothes and baby stuff, and go to my new temporary home. Despicable Ma wouldn't help because that's too hard on her. The fun begins. Every day, 2 or 3 times a day, all I hear from Despicable Ma is, "Are you in labor yet?" And, "When is my baby coming?" I honestly feel like I'm no longer human, just someone carrying her baby. I went 3 weeks past my due date. Her other favorite thing to say, Daisy, was, "You're getting so fat. You'll never lose all that weight." This was said with malicious glee. I weighed 93 pounds the day I found out I was pregnant, and 160 pounds the day I went into delivery. Despicable Ma was obese and hated the fact I wasn't. She was sincerely looking forward to me not losing the weight. Sorry, that still bugs me. So the big day finally arrived. I had a terrible delivery with an incompetent doctor, an overbearing mother, and lots of BS. It was so bad that both my son and myself almost died. His age was 1. One son was placed in the ICU for 5 days. I was placed in ICU for 6 days due to having a heart attack and 136 stitches. Then regular room for 3 days. Yeah, fun. Not. Despicable Ma was pissed. She wasn't allowed in the ICU at all. She could only see her baby from the glass-walled hallway. She would be about it the entire time she would see me in the ICU. Thank God she could only visit me an hour a day. On a funny note, my dad was the first one to hold my son, even before me. Despicable Ma never forgave my dad for that. Since one son got out of the ICU and could technically be discharged before I could leave the hospital, Despicable Ma came up with a great plan. She would take one son home with her. Not happening. No way. No how. Every visit we fought about it. She wouldn't understand why I wanted her baby with me while I was still hospitalized. You know, the baby I carried and almost died giving birth to. She could take care of him until I got home. It just made sense. Her baby shouldn't be in the hospital just because I had to be. Me. Still not happening. No way. No how. The only thing that shut her up. Dad. Despicable Ma, you are not taking that baby away from halfway gonna to. You are not bringing him home. That's her baby, not yours. Stop this nonsense now. I guess she mumbled and grumbled about me at home because Dad called in reinforcements. The day I moved into my regular hospital room, DM learned that my granny and great-granny were coming the day I was to be discharged. Despicable Ma went into a major tizzy. She didn't come to the hospital again. She didn't have time. DM spent 3 days cleaning her house, my home, the cars, everyone's laundry, perfecting the yards and grocery shopping. All because GGG was coming. Despicable Ma hated GGG. It didn't take me long to figure out why. But that will be the next tale. Update. Gorilla Tales. Despicable Ma vs GGG Part 1. I meant to post this yesterday, but got caught up. Didn't mean to leave you hanging. When I left off, I had delivered one son. Due to a bad time delivering him, we had to remain in the hospital for 9 days. Well, Despicable Ma went batch T stupid during that time, so my dad called in reinforcements in the form of Granny. Granny decided to bring her mother GGG along. While I was looking forward to Granny's visit, I wasn't sure how GGG was going to act with me. I had only seen her a handful of times in my life, She lived in a different state with a great uncle, and she had always been good with me. But I didn't really know her besides knowing she was also ultra-religious, and Despicable Ma hated her. I was nervous to see her. On with the show. The day finally comes that I and one son can leave the hospital. I'm looking forward to being in my own bed and some quiet time with my baby. Just to relax without the noise and constant interruption of nurses and doctors. I want time to bond with my baby. Despicable Ma was still getting everything ready for Granny and GGG's visit, so my dad and best friend brought me home. Pulling into the driveway, I see 24 cars parked around my home. I recognize most of them. She's throwing a effing party at my home. 9 days later, I almost died. I can't even pick up my son by myself, and she's throwing a effing party. I want to go back to the hospital. I look at Dad and best friend. Both are pissed, and neither knew this was happening. Dad took sleeping one son from his carrier, and my best friend helped me out of the car. As I walk into my home full of people, Despicable Ma rushes to me, grabs my arm that hurt me bad, and demands to know where her baby is. Me, I've had it with her. Despicable Ma, let go of me. First, he's my baby. Not yours. Second, why are all these people here? Despicable Ma. They came to see my baby. Isn't that sweet of them? Me very loudly. He's not your baby. Despicable Ma scolding. You don't have to be so rude. You have guests. You were supposed to be polite when you have guests. I look around. These are all DM's friends. The only friend I had there was my bestie. These are your guests. Not mine. You be polite. I shoot my dad a pleading look. Dad very sternly. Despicable Ma, let halfway gonna to sit down. She's not supposed to be up. At that moment, Despicable Ma spied one son in my dad's arms and tried to grab him. Dad just moves away, says no. He has to do that several times. Waits for me to sit down and hands one son to me. DM being DM tries to grab my baby from me. Literally trying to grab him from me. Me holding on tight, slaps her hands. No, he's sleeping. You can hold him once he wakes up. Not until then. Despicable Ma fake crying. But I've hardly got to see him. Everyone is here to see me with my new baby. Me even more disgusted. He's not your baby, and you're not holding him until he wakes up. Perhaps it would be best if everyone went home or even to your house. Despicable Ma worried. You can't kick your guests out. Besides, Granny and GGG will be here soon. It's best to have lots of people around. Her friends are here not to just see her as Grandma, but also as a buffer with GGG. Me a bit snidely. They are your guests, not mine. I'm perfectly okay with kicking them out. Despicable Ma spent the next 5 minutes begging me to let her guests stay. As much fun as it was to see her beg, I give in because I'm too worn out not to. An hour later, Granny and GGG walk in the house. Without saying a word to me, GGG starts yelling. GGG after looking around. Good Lord, Despicable Ma. Were you dropped on your head as a baby? What are all these people doing here? Halfway gone to just got out of the hospital. What were you thinking? Shoo all you people, shoo. Go next door. You don't belong here. Go on, get. GGG proceeds to hustle everyone out the door, including my dad and bestie, until it was only her and Granny left. They spent a few minutes with me. I made sure I had something to eat and my medication. Then they tucked me and one son into bed for a nap. GGG kindly. Now don't you worry about a thing. Granny and I will take care of you. I'm going to go have some words with your mama now. Relaxed for the first time in what seemed like forever, I snuggled in for a nap. I love GGG. Granny and GGG did have some words with Despicable Ma. But that's the next tale. Update. Gorilla Tales. Despicable Ma vs GGG Part 2. I'm back with your next installment. Grab some wine or a beer. Kick back and enjoy. I'm going to back up a little here and give you all a description of GGG. She was a tall 6 feet, stately woman, looked like the dad's mother in Gilmore Girls. She was 84 years old and widowed. I didn't get to meet great-grandpa. She had 14 children, 9 of whom had already died, 5 in various wars. She still helped around my great-uncle's farm every day. She was no nonsense, firm but loving. Granny was an amazing woman herself. She was a farmer's daughter and wife for 50 years. After her 4 children left home, and while helping to raise me and my siblings, she became an RN at 49. Papa sold his family farm so Granny could work in the field she loved. She was a 2-time cancer survivor. She was passionately in love with Papa until the day she died. Granny took after GGG in every way, including her looks. I've only seen her mad at 3 people in my life. DM and my bio father were 2 of them. My youngest son's father was the 3rd. Despicable Ma did not take after Granny or GGG. She was a self-proclaimed child of the 1960s, and I never wanted to leave it. Yeah, she was a major stoner. She didn't care about or for her children, unless she could use the situation or us to her advantage. On with our story. This next part was told to me by my dad and bestie. When Granny and GGG left me, they went directly to DM's house. The party was going strong. Despicable Ma was tipsy and high. That was seriously not smart of her. Granny and GGG were very upset. They both calmly let it be known that the guests should leave. When that took time, GGG confronted DM. GGG very quietly. Now, Missy DM's full name. You can ask the rest of your friends to leave, or I can talk to you in front of them. DM stoned, drunk and stupid. My guests are staying. Why don't you leave? You weren't invited here. Granny madder than my dad's ever seen her. DM's full name. You will not speak to your grandmother that way. What kind of person did I raise? Everyone needs to leave. Now, holy damn. She raised her voice. Granny doesn't do that. Bestie said, she's never seen such a rush to a door. Even she and my dad left for my place. None of us knows what happened. Just that there was a lot of crying by DM. We could hear it next door. And DM is always that loud when playing the martyr. A couple of hours later, I'm sitting on the couch with Bestie beside me, holding and cooing at #1 son. Dad's in a chair. He's not willing to go home until he knows the coast is clear. We're all just talking and semi-watching TV, trying to decide on dinner. In walks Granny, GGG, and following behind a completely sober and cowed DM. Granny looks at DM. She raises her eyebrow and nods her head. DM reciting like a little kid. Halfway gonna to. It was inconsiderate of me to have some people here some. There were at least 25 people here. When you just got home. Whining starts. I just really want to show off my baby. You understand, right? GGG exasperated. DM's full name again? That wasn't sincere at all. And when are you going to get it through your head? That is not your baby. That is Halfway Gonna To's baby. You are the grandmother. Now act like it. Never in my life have I seen such a display. As GGG finishes talking, Despicable Ma walks over, grabs #1 son, my 9-day-old son, a little roughly from Bestie, and holds him out to Granny and GGG. Me protesting. Mother. DM with her prize. Here, you haven't seen the big production of not saying my baby yet. Why don't you hold him for a while? I swear to God she teeheed. Granny gentle taking #1 son. DM, you know very well that the only person who decided who holds a baby is the mother. Never take a baby without asking. I know I taught you that. Then she gives #1 son to Bestie again. Dad, Bestie, and I all grinned widely, not saying anything but enjoying the show. GGG takes DM aside and whispers to her for a few minutes. DM is looking chastised and doesn't say anything. Dad, I guess, decided that DM had been tortured enough, so he asks what we should do for dinner. He tried. He really did. DM happy. I thought we would take Granny and GGG out to dinner. Turning to GGG. There's a great seafood place you'll just love. Now this invitation obviously doesn't include me. Aside from the fact that #1 son, and I just got out of the hospital 3 hours earlier. I am extremely allergic to fish and seafood. Despicable Ma is very well aware of that fact, as is everyone else in the room. Granny, GGG, Dad, and Bestie all give DM a look that says, "You're nuts and are going to hell." I wasn't too surprised. It's typical DM behavior. But I did have one little problem. Me resigned for a blow-up. DM, I hope you're prepared to not see #1 son for at least 24 hours after you eat seafood. DM turns to me pissed off. And why the hell not? Is this some sort of punishment? Do you think you can punish me? Do you think you can keep me from my baby? Granny, GGG, Dad, and Bestie at the same time yell out. He's not your baby. Me grinning like a fool because of the shout out. I'm not punishing you. Since I'm so allergic, I don't know if #1 son is too. I'm not willing to risk it. You know I can smell when someone's eaten fish or seafood. It takes at least 24 hours for the smell to go away. So, until it does, you or anyone who eats it won't be able to be around #1 son until I can't smell it anymore. DM huffily. That's just ridiculous. GGG annoyed. DM, she is the mother. She decides what's right for her baby. Now, we aren't leaving Halfway Gonna To by herself until she's healed. We'll make her dinner here. DM whining. But there's nothing to eat here. It's late. I don't want to cook. GGG forcefully. You're going to the store and pick up food Halfway Gonna To will like. You are cooking dinner. You will do the dishes. You will do it with the grace and style you were taught. Do I make myself clear? DM dejected. Yes, ma'am. Dinner was great. DM behaved herself very well. She even did dishes without complaint under GGG's watchful eyes. Of course, DM did have a nice surprise for me. But that's the next tale. Update. Gorilla Tales. Despicable Ma, Enabling Stepdad, and Epic CBF. This is a little out of order, but I thought everyone could use a giggle. This occurred about 28 years after my last story. DM and Dad had divorced. DM got married again to enabling stepdad. Before I moved back to my home state to take care of a very ill DM and enable stepdad, #1 son showed me this video that was a perfect description of DM and stepdad's marriage. Me, being me, couldn't wait to show DM. She listened to the first few lines. They hit her and bam. Epic CBF. I rolled laughing. And so did stepdad. Funniest part. The puppet looked just like stepdad. This is for all the enabling dads out there. OP provided a link to Milton singing The Man Song by Sean Morey. Update. Gorilla Tales. Despicable Ma vs. GGG Part 3. Hello, my friends. Today's a good day to write this part, as it's cold, windy, and I'm at home sick. Grab a drink, hard liquor recommended, sit back, and enjoy the tale. When we left off, DM said she had a surprise for me. CB bot. Isn't that sweet? Yeah, the problem is the surprise could be scary, could be nothing, or it could be great. You just never know with her. In any case, she refused to give any hints. Just sat there with a smug smile on her face. Since Bestie was staying with me, while I healed, I begged her to before Dad called Granny. GGG and Granny hustled DM and Dad out so I could rest. Bright and early the next morning. I'm still in bed. Bestie's asleep on the couch. The front door is banged open, and a crowd of people barges in with DM in the lead. All chattering, laughing, and giggling. Bestie wakes up a little frightened and a lot confused. DM and her horde proceed to my room. Bangs open that door, waking me and scaring the crap out of me. #1 son is also startled awake and starts screaming. I bolt up out of bed and start yelling. What the hell? Then the pain hits. I'm literally brought to my knees by it. I clutch the bed for support. Just FYI. Don't jump out of bed when you've just had a baby and 136 stitches. DM gleefully. What are you doing still in bed? We're here to see my baby. Awa, he's crying. Let me get him. I finally see who's invading my room. I absolutely hate anyone just coming in my room with a passion. I catch my breath. I'm instantly furious. Me screaming and pointing at the door. Get out. Get out now. Don't you effing touch him. Get out of my house. Get out. Get out. Get out. You ever see 30 people run for the door without there being a fire or sale going on? Yeah, it was a blasted stampede to see who could get out first. It was kind of humorous. I call out to Bestie. She comes, helps me back into bed, and brings me #1 son. Then goes to make his bottle and grabs me my pain pills. About 30 minutes later, there's a knock on the door. I tell Bestie if it's DM or any of the horde to not let them in. It's Granny and GGG. Now Granny and GGG are all about family. But they also believe in manners and limits. So GGG asks me what happened as Despicable Ma is at her home crying her eyes out for the last half an hour. I tell them what happened. Neither are happy. GGG goes to have a talk with the family, while Granny checks me out to make sure I'm okay and haven't pulled any stitches. Dad told me that GGG gave everyone there a harsh talking to. Especially DM for her, crying for no damn good reason. He quietly laughed as he walked out of the door for work. 2 hours or so later, I didn't rush. I and Bestie are dressed and have coffee and food. #1 son is bathed, fed, and cooing away. Granny and GGG convince me to go to DM's house and see everyone. They came all this way to help me. Fine, I will, but I don't want to. Bestie gets #1 son. Granny helps me walk over. I open the door. Look everyone. It's every female in DM's extended family, including young children. Are you effing kidding me? I'm really not happy. I don't like most of these people, and they don't like me. DM comes up and takes #1 son. Then it's past the baby time. #1 son was a champ. He cooed the entire time. When he started fussing, Granny took him from Aunt 1, kicked her out of her chair, and gave him to me. She wanted to feed him. Nope. At this point, I'm calm and relaxed. No one has said anything mean or upsetting. I should have known. DM happy as can be. Look at the time. Bio sister's name should be here any minute. I better get lunch on. Now the problem I have with this is that when I was 8.5 pregnant, my sister assaulted me 3 times in one day. DM and the rest of the herd knew this. They even saw her assault me once. Bestie looks at me. I look at her. She rushes over, takes #1 son, and helps me to my feet. I start walking out. Me calmly but mad. Call me when she's gone. Until then, my doors will be locked, and no one will be allowed in except Granny and GGG. GGG flabbergasted. Missy Ann? Her nickname for me, she didn't know about what had happened. Granny completely understanding. Mom, don't. Halfway gone to is right. DM. Bio sister is family. You can't keep her from seeing #1 son. She's his aunt. That's just wrong. She has a right to see him. The family starts spouting the same thing, of course. Me steel-toned. Watch me, and walk out. At home, I had my first cigarette and a glass of wine since I found out I was pregnant. So bio sister stayed for 2 days. True to my word, the door stayed locked. DM and other family members came over several times, but I wouldn't answer the door or let them in. I had Granny, GGG, and my dad's full backing. Once Granny assured me that bio sister was well and truly gone. Bestie holding #1 son, and I went over to DM's place. They did the pass the baby thing again. Not one person said anything about bio sister. I'm relaxing again. DM excessively cheerful. Halfway gone too. I almost forgot your surprise. Me very guarded. Oh, what is it? DM all excited. The family and I have made all the arrangements for #1 son's blessing. Mormon christening. It's going to be next Saturday in Aunt 1's town. A week and 350 miles away. Uncle 1 Aunt 1's DH will do the blessing. And the party after will be at their house. Isn't that wonderful? Me not at all happy. No, I can't travel that far in my condition. Aunt 1 smiling sweetly. It's okay, dear. You can't go to the blessing anyway. You're not allowed in the church. We'll take #1 son with us, and DM will bring him back on that Monday. I'm sure my expression was priceless. I know Granny's and GGG's were. Up next, the blessing. Update. Gorilla Tales. Despicable Ma in How Much Are Those Children in the Windows? The other day, Big Brother and I were talking about some good childhood memories. I thought I would share one with you all. This story takes us all the way back to the winter of 1969. I was a child of 3, and my brother was a child of 4. Despicable Ma had moved us 250 miles away from Granab and Papa to a large city in my state, sometime during the preceding year. I really don't remember her around much during this time. She was working at a bar at night. We lived across the road from it. Sleeping during the day or off playing. We didn't have babysitters unless she was going to be gone for several days. She had her biological sister 7-year-old watch us, which she didn't. We weren't allowed to disturb Despicable Ma, as long as we were home by dark. She didn't care what we did. Each day, Big Bro and I would wake up, get dressed, grab some food, if there was any. 70% of the time there wasn't, and head out exploring. We went everywhere and did everything. Swimming in the Snake River. Fishing. Finding wild veggies and berries. Climbing trees and picking fruit. Making a fort in an old abandoned barn. We loved that fort. It offered such safety and comfort, and it kept out the rain and snow. But winter came, and so did the heavy snows. Being as small as we were, neither Big Bro nor I could easily traipse through the snow to our fort anymore. We decided to explore the streets where the sidewalks were shoveled. We found magic. Christmas lights twinkling. People are smiling and being kind. Christmas carols playing. Decorations lit up everywhere. Beautifully wrapped presents. Every store and lamppost was decked out. People are handing out hot chocolate, hot cider, and cookies. It was such a wonder to a small child. This one store, though, it was a child's fantasy come to life. It had 2 large windows decked out to perfection. Each had its own Christmas tree and theme. Big Bro loved his window. It had a spinning tree with red and white bulbs and a tooting train running under it. Presents were so large they were bigger than he was. Lights everywhere. Even a huge stuffed dog and elephant. My window was just as grand with its own spinning tree, red and green bulbs, and small white flowers in it. Flashing lights. Presents wrapped in Santa paper. Dolls in pretty dresses. And the very best, a 5 giraffe, a stuffed teddy bear bigger than me, and a huge stuffed mouse same size as me that looked like the cheesy Cheetos mouse. Every day Big Bro and I would go to that store and spend hours outside just looking and staring. Then one day, the best thing ever happened. The people in the store invited us inside the store. It was wonderful. It was so warm. They even gave us sandwiches. The best part, we could look at the windows from inside. After a while, they even let us sit inside the windows. The magic, the wonder. Neither Big Bro nor I touched anything. We just stared, imagined, and dreamed as young children do. Then the day came where Big Bro and I made a huge mistake. It was just a day or 2 before Christmas, and the store had been having a party with lots of food and drinks that they shared with Big Brother and me. After we ate, Big Bro and I crawled back into our windows and fell asleep. We were woken up by Store Lady. It was very dark outside. We knew we were in trouble. Store Lady asked us if we knew the man asking for us. Neither Big Bro nor I had ever seen him before. He said he was a friend of Despicable Ma's and had been looking for us. He had come to take us home. Despicable Ma was so worried about us. Yeah, Big Bro and I weren't going with him. We didn't know him, and it didn't matter what he said. Store Lady wasn't willing to let us go with him either. She did agree to walk us home 1/2 block away. We get home. Despicable Ma isn't there, but Strange Man is. Store Lady still wasn't willing to leave us alone with Strange Man. So Strange Man went over to the bar to get Despicable Ma. Despicable Ma came home. She thanked Store Lady and sent Strange Man away. She was furious. She let us have it. She beat Big Bro and me until she broke the wooden spoon. Her hand stung, and we couldn't walk. She canceled Christmas, threw out the decorated Christmas tree and presents into a dumpster. Then she locked us in our room until further notice, then left again. For the next several days, Big Bro and I were only allowed out of the room to eat or potty. Otherwise, we were locked in. We were miserable. Christmas morning arrived. Despicable Ma and Bio Sister had a grand time. Opening presents, singing carols, watching parades. Big Bro and I weren't allowed out or to participate. We cried. Until later that afternoon. Strange man arrived. With a Christmas tree, decorations, presents, dinner, hot cocoa, and cookies. He got Big Bro a train set, and me the cheesy Cheetos mouse from the store. We were two very happy and excited children. It was the best Christmas ever. That, my dears, is how I met the man who raised me, and that I call Dad. He had heard what Despicable Ma had done from some bar patrons and wanted to fix it. Despicable Ma was never allowed to cancel another Christmas or any other holiday. Dad wouldn't allow it. I found out years later that when he went into the store, he asked store lady, "How much are those children in the windows?" His words were a play on the song, "How much is that doggy in the window?" which was playing at the moment in the store. He thought he was being funny, not creepy. Lol. 48 years later, I still have the mouse he gave me that fateful Christmas day. Despicable Ma always hated it. Christmas is still my favorite holiday. Edit. Add clarity. Edit. Thank you for the gold. Update. Gorilla Tales. Despicable Ma in Here, Kitty Kitty. Here's another trip down memory lane for your enjoyment. Big Bro and I always still have a great affinity with animals. If it has fur or feathers, we adore it. The animals know it too. While I have healthy respect for all animals, especially wild animals, I'm not afraid of them. Despicable Ma despised that quality in us. She would rant and rave forever about it. She would punish us horribly for just looking at an animal. This story might be why. It was late May 1970. I had just turned 4 years old, and Big Bro was 5 years old. Dad had decided to take us all camping high up into the mountains before we left for the summer. Despicable Ma was all for it. 3 days drinking on someone else's dime. And, as an added bonus, she didn't have to deal with her kids. Score for her. Big Bro and I were so thrilled and excited. We had been camping in the desert and foothills, but never high in the mountains. It was going to be a great adventure. Dad even got us our very own sleeping bags and pillows to take. And our own tent too. So cool. Driving up to our campsite in the back of a crammed full pickup, Big Bro and I chattered the entire way excitedly over everything. How high the mountains were. How huge the trees were. How scary the cliffs looked. The snow is still on the ground. Pointing out deer, raccoons, eagles, and hawks to each other. It was all so fantastic to our little eyes, hearts, and minds. We got to the campsite. Dad had some a lot friends meet us there. Big Bro and I were very wary of new people, so Dad had us set up our tent with his help and put our stuff up while they all unloaded the pickup. Then we were free to roam, as long as we stayed within shouting distance. Since the other kids were older than us and didn't want us around, Big Bro and I headed off in the opposite direction than where they went. There was a huge lake close by that really needed looking into, so off we went. It was great. The lake was freezing cold and tasted like heaven. It was so crystal clear, we could see all the way to the sandy bottom. It had so many different colored fish swimming lazily around. We were even able to skip rocks 5 or 6 times on it. Well, Big Bro could. I could only skip a rock 2 times. We were halfway around the lake when we found 2 adorable lost kittens. The poor things. They looked so hungry. Big Bro and I knew from experience that there was no way Despicable Ma would give us perfectly good food to feed some damn animal. So Big Bro ran back to the campsite to get our fishing poles, while I stayed to keep an eye on the kitties and try to coax them to come close so I could pet them. It took us some time, but we were able to catch several fish for the kitties. They gobbled them up almost before we could get the bones out. Poor starved babies. Night started to fall. Big Bro and I knew we had to get back to the campsite. We just had a few little problems. We couldn't leave the kitties by themselves, and they were just too big for either of us to carry. So we walked along saying, "Here, kitty kitty," and used the last of the fish to coax the kitties to come with us. We finally reached the edge of the campsite when it's almost full dark. Despicable Ma catches sight of us and starts yelling and asking where we were. Big Bro and I each pick up a scared kitty and mostly drag them to show DM, while hurriedly explaining about finding the lost kitties. Despicable Ma stopped talking and froze. Every other person in the campsite became quiet and froze. The only noise was the lap of the water, sparks from the fire, crickets, and the chuffing growls of the kitties. Big Bro and I look around at everyone and start to panic. We didn't understand why everyone looked so upset. Dad slowly walks towards us and kneels down. He calmly asks where we found the kitties. Big Bro told him, pointing in the general direction while holding on to his baby. Dad calmly explained that the kitties weren't lost. Their mommy had left them in that spot, while she went for food. She was probably worried about them and looking for them. He had to take them back. Dad and one of his friends took the kitties from us after Big Bro, and I kissed them goodbye. He then spoke to Despicable Ma and a couple of more people. Then they headed off to return the kitties. As soon as they were out of sight, all hell broke loose. Everyone was scrambling around, grabbing gear, tearing down tents, and loading up trucks. Despicable Ma alternated between yelling, slapping, and spanking us. She couldn't believe we were so stupid. We ruined a great weekend because of our thoughtlessness. How do we embarrass her in front of Dad's friends? How could we? Didn't we have any sense? We were grounded until further notice. We went home as soon as Dad and his friend came back. The next day, Big Bro and I found out that the kitties were actually mountain lions. Everyone had been scared that the mother would come to the camp and attack someone. Mountain lions are very territorial and protective of their cubs. The things you learn. Update. Gorilla Tales. Satan's Queen in The Long Road to Grandpa. Trigger warning. Child abuse. I've written about Satan's Queen, my bio-father's mother, a few times. Even after all these years, I still have trouble facing some of the things she did. I'm writing this story mostly because I don't want to. I'm posting it for the same reason. But the memories keep creeping up lately. I haven't shared them before. With anyone. So here we go. The year was 1971. I had just turned 5 years old. It was a particularly bad year for me. I had woken up one winter morning, and Big Brother was gone. Just gone. I couldn't find him anywhere. Despicable Ma only told me he was fine, but she wouldn't tell me where he was. I didn't believe her. After she cussed at me about me asking for him, I stopped asking. I thought I would never see him again. I thought he was dead. I missed him. I cried late at night, holding on to Cheesy, so no one would hear and I wouldn't get into trouble. Bio sister loved having Big Bro gone. Without a protector, she couldn't fight both of us together. She could do anything she wanted with me. Beat on me, starve me, lock me in our room for hours, terrorize me. I hadn't learned to fight all that well yet, and she was 4 years older than me. Despicable Ma didn't believe me or didn't care when I told her what Bio sister was doing, and I was too afraid to tell Dad. Bio sister had threatened to kill me if I did tell him. I believed her. One day, Dad found me passed out under a tree in our yard. I had had my first heart attack. After several days in the hospital, I was diagnosed with cardiomyopathy and heart arrhythmia. I wasn't allowed to do anything but keep quiet and calm around Despicable Ma. Bio sister got very angry over the attention I received and beat me every time DM left us alone, which was daily. Summer came. Dad, DM, Bio sister, and I all went camping again. It was awful. I wasn't allowed to do anything but sit by the fire, eat, and sleep. I couldn't even help put up the tent. Finally, DM delivered us to Granab and Papa. I fell asleep that night in Papa's lap. My first bit of happiness and security in so very long. It wasn't to last. The next morning, my bio father arrived early to get us. I didn't want to go with him. I knew he would make me see Satan's Queen. I screamed. I cried. I fought. DM forced me to go anyway. Bio father drove Bio sister, and I straight to Satan's Queen's lair. For me, it's a house of nightmares. I started shaking as soon as I saw it. Before, Big Bro and I had had each other. Now, I was alone and scared. I had no one around me that cared. Walking into her door, I knew it was just a matter of time before it happened. Maybe if I make myself small, she'll forget about me. Maybe it wouldn't happen this time. I prayed. Bio sister was greeted warmly, lovingly, and given presents by Satan's Queen and her husband. I was ignored. Satan's Queen hustled Bio sister and Bio father into the kitchen for a snack and drinks. I was hungry, but knew better than to ask for anything. I sat in a corner on the floor and looked at a book. Bio father left. He just left. No words or even a glance in my direction. He just left me there. He knew what happened there. He left anyways. I huddled closer to the walls and continued to look at my book. I hoped I was small enough. I wasn't. Satan's Queen stomps into the living room, grabs me by my hair, and pulls me up until I'm dangling in front of her. She slaps me over and over on my face and head. Then she grabs her husband's belt and starts hitting me everywhere. Over and over until I couldn't scream anymore. You rotten child. How dare you ignore me? Do you think you're too good to eat my food? How dare you insult me like that, you ungrateful brat? I struggle to get free, kick my legs, and pull at her hands. But there is no way I can. She's too strong. Still screaming and berating me, she dragged me by my hair into her bedroom and to the basement door. Down the wooden steps to the bottom, and then she threw me away from her. You're to stay here until you learn some manners. Don't you go banging on the door either. You'll stay here until I say you can come out. She stomped back up the stairs. I heard the key turn in the lock. Everything throbbed and hurt so bad. I crawled to the cot in the corner, laid down, and cried. And cried. Until I couldn't anymore and slept. When I woke up, the basement was pitch black, except for the tiny window near the ceiling. I held myself still, barely breathing, and just listened. No noise from upstairs. That meant they were asleep. I was hungry and thirsty. I knew from experience that I wouldn't get to eat as long as I was in Satan's queen's house, now that I made her mad. However, the washer had a hose to it that I could get a drink from. As quietly as I could, I slid from the cot and crawled around on the floor until I found the washer, and then the step stool I knew would be close by. I stood up while keeping my hand on the washer. Stepping up on the stool, I fumbled around until I found the hose and the turn-on valve. The water tasted sweet and was filling. I needed to use the bathroom, but I couldn't find the bucket she kept down there. It was too black to see it, and there were no lights down there I could turn on. I knew I would get a worse beating if I made a mess. I held it. I just crawled back to my cot and laid down. Looking up at the little window, I thought about what morning would bring. I knew another beating was coming. I just didn't know how bad or what she would use. Last time it was a whip, but I had seen that long, thick board with nails in it that she had on the wall where she kept the belt. I didn't think I would live through a beating if that board was used. I was sure I wouldn't. I didn't want to die like that. If only I could get up to that window. I could crawl out and get away. I could go to Grandpa. Grandpa would protect me. I want Grandpa. I cried a little more while looking at that window. How do I get to the window? There's boxes down here. And the stool. I could stack the boxes and stool on the cot until I could reach it. So that's what I did. I crawled around in the darkness until I found boxes I could lift and stack them as high as I could. After a few trials and several falls, I was finally able to reach the window, open it, and crawl out. I ran away from that house towards Grandpa as fast as I could. I ran until I couldn't see that awful house anymore or breathe. I slowed to a walk and continued to head to Grandpa. I walked and walked. All day and into the night. I hid anytime I saw a car or a person. I drank from creeks and canals. I ate wild berries and rhubarb. I slept hidden in bushes when I got tired. The next morning, I walked and walked. I continued to hide from cars and people. I was scared, hungry, and hurting so bad. I wanted to stop, but I was afraid to. If someone found me, they might take me back to Satan's queen. Night was coming again. The sun is slowly setting. The air was getting cooler. It felt good. I had been walking forever. It was hurting and tiring, but I continued on. Finally, I saw the store that was at the entrance to Grandpa's reservation. They would get Grandpa for me. I started crying. I couldn't run. I was hurting too bad, but I walked as fast as I could to that door of hope. Walking into the store, I recognized the woman behind the counter. She was always kind to me when Grandpa and I came in. I called out to her. She didn't recognize me with my face sunburned, swollen, bruised, and bloodied. A look of horror was on her face as she came towards me and pulled me into a hug. I hugged her back and started bawling. She called out for help. Several people came running. They all exclaimed and chattered. Someone called the police and doctor. They arrived soon after, but I screamed and clutched tighter to the lady. I knew any time an officer came close to me. I was so terrified they would take me back to Satan's queen. I kept asking for Grandpa over and over, but I wasn't speaking so well or very loud. No one could understand me. The lady I was hugging got everyone to stay back and to quiet down so she could hear me. Finally, she heard me say, "Grandpa." Right then she knew who I was. There was only one man on the reservation who had a white-haired granddaughter. She started crying and holding me tighter. She told the officers who to call. Grandpa arrived in minutes, in a cloud of dust and squealing brakes. He ran into the store, gently picked me up, and held me close. He held me while the doctor treated me, and I talked to the police. I slept in his lap that night. I was safe. Aftermath and notes. Grandpa is my paternal grandfather. He was 90 years old at the time. He still rode horses, hunted, fished, and easily kept up with me. I stayed that entire summer with Grandpa. He taught me to fight better, use a knife, and how to get away from someone holding me. When he took me back to Despicable Ma in the fall, he had a long conversation with her before he left. This was the only time he ever took me home, so I remember it well. DM treated me very well for a long time after. Bio-sister didn't hit me either. Satan's queen never told anyone I was missing. I had been gone over 30 hours as best as anyone could figure out. I have no idea if she or my bio-father got into any legal trouble for what she did. I found out it's 32 miles from Satan's queen's home to the reservation store. I never again went to Satan's queen's house without Grandpa, Granny B, or Papa with me. That didn't stop SQ from going to my biological father's house, but she never beat me that bad again. In the face anyways. I learned that neither Despicable Ma nor my biological father would ever protect me. I realized being quiet and calm would never keep me safe or unharmed. It's better to fight. Only then might I find safety. I really hope these memories go back in their box where they belong now. Thank you for reading. I'm sorry you did. Update. Gorilla Tales. Despicable Ma in Disneyland Misadventures, Part 1. This story is a major jump in the timeline, but I thought you would enjoy it. It was late winter, and it had been a long, cold, snowy one. I had been working long hours, taking care of my family, businesses, house, animals, and small farm. I was 29 years old, and my 30th birthday was fast approaching. I was feeling a little down. I needed a vacation and some fun. Looking at my schedule and contracts coming up, the only time I could take a break was 6 days before my birthday and the day itself. I had a contract starting the day after my birthday, and my next break was going to be in October. I wasn't willing to wait. I couldn't do a family vacation as my DH couldn't get time off, and my 2 oldest kids, one son and stepson, would be going back to school just after spring break. That left me and 4-year-old 2 son. It seemed to me that it was a perfect time to take him to Disneyland. Neither he nor I had ever been, while DH and the oldest 2 sons had been several times. My wonderful DH and my oldest 2 sons were all for it. They thought it was a great idea. So I booked the plane tickets, the hotel on site, and bought a 3-day fast pass ticket with a character breakfast for us. I even got us tickets to Knott's Berry Farm. We were going to have fun. 2 son and I were so excited. Then I messed up. I told Despicable Ma about our plans. Backstory. I raised niece from 10 months old to 3 years old, while bio sister got her life somewhat put together. If it hadn't been for her boyfriend, she would have never gotten her back. BS's boyfriend was, and is, a really good man who adored niece and took good care of her. DM. Well, what about niece? Me very confused. What about her? DM indignant. 2 son can't go to Disneyland before niece does. That wouldn't be fair. She has to go with you too. Me irritated. No, she doesn't. If bio sister wants niece to go, she can take her. Niece is no longer my responsibility. DM appalled. Bio sister can't take her. She can't afford a trip like that. Niece was like a daughter to you. You have to take her. Done with it all. No, as you and she are so fond of reminding me, I am not niece's parent anymore. Bio sister can get off her lazy arse, get a job, and take niece herself. That should have been the end of it. But this is JM Mill, so you know it wasn't. Despicable Ma bugged and badgered me for weeks, until I relented to agreeing to have her and niece come along. That fact that she told niece I was taking her pretty much sealed the deal. I refused to have bio sister bring her. I booked the same travel plans for them as I did for 2 son and myself. Despicable Ma was supposed to pay me back, but that never happened. DM. You can afford it, and I need travel money. B had no idea what my income was, or if I could afford it or not. It wasn't her place to decide what I could afford. I was pissed, but decided to try to have fun anyway. I also decided not to allow her to interfere with 2 sons and my plans. Devilish laugh. The night before our trip, I called both Despicable Ma and bio sister to make sure they were packed, and to verify when DH and I would be picking up DM and niece. Having met DM and bio sister before, I knew to give them a very early pickup time because they would delay us. I had the tickets, so they had no clue. I was right. Day 1. DH, 2 son, and I arrive at Despicable Ma and Dad's house. DH and 2 son stay in the car, while I go grab her and her luggage makes for an easy exit. Now DM is not a dingbat, but she can dither like the best of them. Oh, I forgot XXXX. Dad finally pushed her out the door, telling her to buy what she needs when she gets to Disneyland. In the car to niece's house, I remind DM that she will be taking care of niece, not me. Yes, I know. We get to bio sister's house. Niece wasn't bathed, isn't dressed, and was still eating. She has nothing packed for niece at all. She thought she had more time. No. I'll give you 10 minutes. If niece isn't ready, either we take what's packed, or we leave without her and DM. DM. We'll just rebook the tickets for a later time. Me. No. I'm not spending $150 per ticket to change flights. 10 minutes, and we're leaving. I check my watch and go sit in the car. While I didn't want to disappoint niece, I wasn't willing to disappoint 2 son. Nor would I put up with DM or bio sister's SHT. DM and niece ran out of the house, yelling as we started to pull away. Despicable Ma was pissed. Not my problem. She's lucky I had DH stop the car. I remind DM again that she will be taking care of niece, not me. You don't have to keep reminding me. Yeah, actually, I think I do. A little important side note. Even as a toddler, I could take my kids anywhere. They knew their manners. They kept beside me, either holding my hand, belt loop, or pocket. They put on angel wings hands behind their backs in stores. I had good kids. Bio sister had undone all of niece's training. So we get to the airport and are checking in with all our luggage, my 1, DM's 3, and niece's 1 when niece disappears. DM had dropped her hand to deal with their luggage. Despicable Ma stayed with #2 son and the luggage while I went looking. I finally find her and hand her to DM. We're at the gate. DM is being about being so early. Niece disappears. DM goes looking for her this time. And the next. DM finally keeps a hold on her. #2 son whispering. Mommy, niece is being naughty, isn't she? Me holding in a giggle. Yes, little one, she is doing naughty things. By the time we got to LA and our hotel, Despicable Ma was exhausted and mad. She didn't want to deal with niece anymore. Too bad, DM. You're responsible for her. DM and niece had room service, while #2 son and I ate in a restaurant, shopped along the boulevard, ate ice cream, and went sightseeing. #2 son was having a blast. I kind of felt sorry that niece was missing out, but I was really enjoying my time with my son. Day 2. We had our character breakfast scheduled for 7 am, so #2 son and I were up bright and early, getting ready. I knock on DM's door. They were still sleeping. DM didn't want to go anyways. We can take niece. Me. No, DM. You insisted on coming on this trip. Niece is your responsibility. #2 son and I are leaving in a few minutes. You and niece can get ready and meet the next shuttle. You should be just in time for breakfast. If you don't show, we'll meet you at noon at XXX restaurant. DM and niece showed up 45 minutes late, but they showed. #2 son excitedly told them about his breakfast with his new friend Tigger. Niece was upset that she missed her breakfast with Snow White, but I reminded her that she might see her later in the day, and she had another breakfast scheduled with Snow White the next day. DM wasn't happy to hear that. Niece disappeared 2 times during her breakfast. DM didn't even get to finish her meal. Throughout the day, anytime DM let go of niece, even for an instant, she would take off. It was irritating and exhausting for me. It was worse for Despicable Ma. It was early evening when I saw a child with a Minnie Mouse backpack on and a leash attached to it. I had never seen one before, but it was perfect to keep niece in line. I ran up to the dad holding the leash and found out where he got it. DM made a beeline to the store, paid $75,000 for it herself, and immediately put it on niece. I for #2 son a regular Tigger backpack. To be fair. Lol. Finally, we could relax a bit. The rest of the day was a lot fun. Day 3. DM, niece #2 son, and I all arrived bright and early to the character breakfast with backpacks on. Niece got her meal with Snow White. She was a thrilled little girl. Even with niece whining about the leash, we had a great morning, riding rides, getting autographs, singing, and munching on goodies. As we were heading to lunch, #2 son spotted a shop that had a perfect gift in it for his brothers, and membered it for himself. He asked if we could go in. I had him put his angel wings on, and off we went. Despicable Ma and niece followed behind. It was a crystal shop. DM wasn't paying attention to niece. She was too busy shopping. Niece, of course, picks up a small crystal castle and drops it. Despicable Ma was furious. Even more so when she had to pay $400 for it. DM decided she and niece were done for the day and headed straight back to the hotel. I reminded Despicable Ma she couldn't hit or yell at niece for DM's mistake. Her and I would come to blows if she did. DM knew we would too. Son and I had a lovely, fun time. We got back late that night after the fireworks and parade. Day 4. Son and I went alone to Disneyland. DM asked me to take niece by myself. She was too tired to go. I reminded her that she agreed to be solely responsible for niece. DM and niece stayed at the hotel and went swimming. Day 5. Son and I went alone to Knott's Berry Farm. We had a blast. DM decided against going. She and niece saw some relatives we have in the area. Like that wasn't planned in advance at all. Niece didn't have a very good time. By then, she despised the leash. Too bad it was so necessary for her. Insanity. We flew home late that night. Aftermath. DM never again took niece anywhere without Bio's sister or BS's boyfriend along. It was just too frustrating. Bio's sister was furious that we leashed her daughter, like a dog. She's not that hard to handle. Bio's sister wouldn't know, because she never took niece anywhere alone. Only BS's boyfriend did. BS's boyfriend loved the leash. I never again let DM ever talk me into horning in on my plans. She tried, but failed. Every time. I used this trip against her time and time again. Update. Jane Militwa. A friend's Facebook proves she is a just no. So I have a friend from high school that I've reconnected with in the last couple of years. We don't hang out much. We're two very different people and have led two very different lives. That said, she's usually a nice person. Today, she posted on FB. My heart is broken. So sad. Well, after a storm of comments along the lines of, what happened, and, what's wrong? She finally replied, my daughter got engaged to her no-good boyfriend. I'm losing my daughter. Another storm of comments. Now I've met her daughter and her boyfriend. Both are good kids to me. Both are mid-20s, both work, and are financially secure. Neither do drugs nor abuse alcohol. They were even waiting to get engaged until BF's promotion came through. My eyes rolled so hard. I did manage to comment that my friend should be thrilled her daughter is happy. Update. Well, I went out for drinks with my friend last night. To start, she was a bit extremely put out with me. I expected that. I let her speak her mind. You just don't understand what he's like. He is so controlling. He doesn't allow her any time with me. He doesn't allow her to answer my calls after 9 p.m. He demands that I call before I go over. He didn't even ask my permission to get married. And so much more. She complained for an hour without me saying a word. Cue tears. Lots and lots of tears. Now I'm usually very diplomatic, especially with friends. Unfortunately for her, my give a damn button has been turned off. My reply. I've given you the ability to get all this off your chest. Now, knock it the F off. You are way out of line. Your daughter is not a puppet. She can and has made decisions for her life. She will continue to do so. Respect her. She's earned it. Or you will lose her, your choice. Friend and I talked for several hours. I called her on everything, including posting that crap on Facebook. I told her about some stories from here. She seemed subdued and thoughtful at the end. Hopefully she does the right thing. Only time will tell. She did delete her post off Facebook. So a sign? Update 2 that got deleted. I didn't expect to update quite so soon. My friend's daughter called. She got my number from my friend. Okay. She thanked me for talking to her mom. Her mom is very upset over what I said last night. But, of course there is a but. My friend didn't think she was being that bad or crossing any lines. Her daughter set her straight. I see a spine shining up. They will be talking with their pastor about these issues. FDH will also be in the meetings. Daughter asked me about this group as her mom brought it up. I text her the info. Friend and daughter. So, maybe, my friend will change. Update. Gorilla Tales. The despicable Maw tried to baptize #1 son behind my back. This happened long ago, but it still bugs me. Backstory. I'm a pagan Christian, but was raising my children to choose as they wanted to. I introduced them to a wide variety of religions and beliefs. They could choose their beliefs once they reached 18 years old. I will admit I'm not fond of the LDS Church or their teachings. With good reason. In 1994, my #1 son turned 8 years old. Despicable Maw and Granib had a meeting with me and asked me if I would mind if he went to an LDS church. I gave a conditional yes. If #1 son wanted to go, DM provided transportation to and from church. Granib lived 250 miles away, and he stopped going if the conditions weren't met, or if either he or I wanted it to stop. #1 son gave a yes too. If Granib and Papa went to that church, that was cool for him too. Things were all good for a couple of months. Then DM started asking me to take him. Hard no back at her. Then she started complaining. I reminded her of her promise. I finally had to bring Granny B into it to get her to shut up. I agreed to let the bishop, kind of like a pastor, bring him to and from church because #1 son still wanted to go. A few more months pass. One Sunday, #1 son asks me for a second set of church clothes that he can take with him. I ask him why. He tells me that he's not supposed to tell me. Again, I ask him why. He tells me that DM told him I would get mad at him if he did. Hiding my fury at DM, I sit #1 son down and remind him that I don't get mad when he tells me the truth. I'm not going to get mad at him, but I did want to know why he needed extra church clothes. He tells me that he is getting baptized that day. What? After talking to #1 son some more, I find out that he didn't have a clue what it meant or why. Just that DM and the bishop wanted him to. After explaining everything to him, funny enough, my 8-year-old son wasn't willing to decide to be Mormon for the rest of his life. Right on time, the bishop showed up to pick up #1 son. I very calmly told him that I would be taking #1 son to church that day, and I would see him there. I didn't give him a chance to say anything before I closed the door. I gathered up DH and my other 2 sons. Tell them we are all going to church and get ready. While dressing, I tell my DH what is happening and what I'm going to do. DH took my gun cabinet key away. Damn him. As we park, I look around and see the bishop, DM, my dad, all of her brothers, sisters, and their children. Most of these people I'm NC with. I am pissed. We walked up to them. My dad comes and gives me a kiss. I asked him quietly why he didn't tell me this was going on. He thought I knew. He was as pissed as I was that DM and her family were going behind my back. I tell him I'll handle it. We all walk up to the bishop, who is still surrounded by DM and her family. Me calmly. I understand that you intend to baptize my son today. Bishop smiling. #1 son. Yes, he is getting baptized today. Me still calmly. You're going to try to do that without his mother's permission. Isn't that illegal? Bishop no longer smiling. Well, We have DM's and #1 son's permission. Me not so calm. I am his mother, not DM. I have the birth certificate and stretch marks to prove it. How dare you try this without talking to me? DM outraged. My name. You are causing a scene and embarrassing me. Stop now. Everyone is here. #1 son is ready. Let's do this and have a good time. The rest of her family chimes in with the same stuff. Me showing how mad I am. No, not happening. You knew I wouldn't approve of this. You tried to do it behind my back. You even tried to get #1 son to lie to me. #1 son won't be going to this church again. I'll be speaking to the church elders about this. And Granny B and Papa. Since they aren't here, I'm betting they don't know either. I turned and started to walk away with my family. DM runs up and grabs me. DM crying. You can't do this. Everything has been arranged. I have a party prepared at my house. Too damn bad. You should have thought about that before pulling this stunt. We left. Then we had a good breakfast at a great pancake place. Aftermath. I and my family went NC for 3 months. It would have been longer, but Granny B intervened. Dad was more than a little pissed. He proceeded to yell at DM and her family. Then he told them to go home. The party was cancelled. He stayed mad at DM for a good month. I spoke to the church elders and found out the reason that they only needed DM's permission is because she is listed as my children's mother in their records. Not me, because I was never blessed or baptized in their church. They don't need my permission to baptize my child. My attorney contacted them with an injunction. Granib and Papa had a long talk with everyone, especially DM. They didn't have a clue about it. To top it off, my mother's sister lied to Granib and said that #1 son asked her to talk to me about letting him attend church. I was in NC with my mother's sister, so that's why she asked Granny B to do it. Both of my sons did attend services at a different ward of the LDS church in later years. Both decided on their own that it wasn't for them. I did manage to teach them to respect all religions and beliefs. That was my goal. Update. Gorilla Tales. Despicable Maw vs. #1 son and #2 son. Long ago in a far-off land. My house had always been the hangout house for my kids' friends. I honestly didn't know why. Outside of plenty of food and drinks for everyone, I have very strict rules that all kids must obey or be asked to leave and possibly not allowed back. Upon coming to my house the first time, my children would show their friends the list of rules and punishments that I kept on the fridge and tell them they had to follow them too. I rarely had any problems. This didn't change when we moved to Florida. With the exception of the types of friends my sons had. It ran the gambit of complete nerds to gangbangers to lost children and everything in between. Both male and female. It wasn't unusual to have 10+ kids in my 950 square feet home every afternoon. More on the weekends. Still, I rarely had any problems, and the kids got along. One of the rules. I have always been open with my sons regarding SX. When it came to having the talk, I simply sat them down and told them that I knew whichever child at the time was interested in girls and didn't want to talk to me about SX. That was fine. I would prefer that he wait until he was an adult, but knew he may not. We talked a bit about the dangers of STDs. Here are some books and some condoms. He could speak to me at any time, or Grandpa or Uncle Big Bro. A lot of talks happened in the car while I was driving. One day, #1 son calls me up. He asks me if I could be home that afternoon. Why? Him, #2 son, and some friends were hanging around at lunch, just talking. Well, some of their female friends start talking about boys, SX, STDs, pregnancy, etc. #1 son and #2 son spend a few minutes trying to correct them. But the girls are not buying it, or are embarrassed. #2 son hits on the idea of all of them talking to me. #1 son happily agrees. I agree to talk to these girls. No boys allowed though. My sons agree. That afternoon, 22 girls showed up at my house. One girl told one friend who told another, etc. My sons brought them in, showed them the rules, introduced me, got them food and drink, and left. Side rant. These girls were between 15 and 19 years old and were clueless. Seriously, folks, educate kids on how to at least avoid STDs. Specifically AIDS. Florida had the highest AIDS population at that time. I don't think it's gotten better. End rant. The girls and I spent 3 hours having a very candid talk. Something must have worked, as only one girl out of 22 got pregnant accidentally. Not bad. During this talk, my sons were downstairs at the pool, just relaxing and doing homework. DM calls #1 son. #1 son answers and puts it on speaker. DM asks about me. I'm NC with her and have been for several years. Thinking to head off her whining and being about me. #2 son tells her what I'm doing at that moment. Despicable Maw exploded. Ranting that I had no right. What a horrible person I was. I didn't know anything about the right way to deal with this subject on impressionable young people. Yada yada yada. #1 son. Don't you ever speak about mom like that. She's doing us a favor and helping people who need it. She's at least willing to stand up. You sure as hell never did. #2 son. How can you even talk about her? She's there for us every time. She helps our friends every day. She doesn't judge. Don't ever talk about her again. He hung up on her. Oh damn, DM, I think you pissed them off. After the girls all left, my sons came up and told me what happened. They were still fuming. I let them rant for a bit, then took them out to our favorite burger place. The next day at lunch, my sons were talking about it. One of the girls that had been over the day before told them to go and see until DM apologized. They did, and it took DM 4 months to finally do it. I love my sons. Ida. Wow. Thank you for the gold on my comment on how I did my rules. Update. Gorilla Tales. The Despicable Maw and Changing Christmas Traditions. Christmas is my favorite time of year. There is nothing about it that I don't like. Christmas traditions are very important to me too. Granny B and Papa were farmers who came from a long line of farmers. Their Christmas traditions were new pajamas, a new set of winter clothes, one big gift plus maybe a few small gifts, plus an orange and lifesavers in the stockings for their children and grandchildren. For extended family, gifts were always baked goods plus special foods made by both Granib and Papa. We all got together a week before Christmas to celebrate. It was huge and wonderful. Over the years, Granny B and Papa taught me how to cook, bake, and can foods. How to make Christmas baskets and make them look pretty. They taught me why these gifts are so precious. When I was 14 years old and could afford it, I started making Christmas baskets on my own. I loved it. Despicable Maw had her own traditions, usually in the form of parties that she drug us to and heavy drinking. Dinner had to be at her house. Somehow she always managed to snag at least half of my Christmas baskets as gifts for her friends. After I had #1 son, I decided to change things up. Despicable Maw wasn't happy. At all. First Christmas. Because of the terror I felt driving to #1 son's blessing, I refused to travel with my son again during winter if it was raining or snowing. I will get his blessing story out, but spoiler. As soon as we got out of town, it snowed so bad that semi-trucks were sliding off on ramps. We were driving 20 to 30 miles per hour and could not get off the freeway. The snow didn't stop until we were 20 miles from our destination. It took us 10 hours to get to Granny B's house. The family Christmas party came up. There is 2 feet of snow on the ground. I refused to go. DM seriously thought I should drive my 2-month-old child in that. Nope. Not happening. DM literally screamed at me. She came back from it with gifts only for my son. She left mine with my grandparents. Due to having a new baby and working 3 jobs, I wasn't able to make more than my fresh apple cake as gifts. And just enough for my friends and co-workers. Oops, too bad for you, DM. DM asked me what she was supposed to do. Maybe make them yourself. I also refused to attend her friends' parties. How can she show off the baby if he wasn't there? Try pictures. This was the first Christmas Eve I didn't fear dying in a drunk driving accident. I sat by my tree, drinking a hot toddy, listening to Christmas music, and marveling over my baby boy. I was so content. Second Christmas. After talking to Granny B and Papa, the family party was moved to early November. They understood that I wasn't willing to endanger my child ever again. Granib also had a long talk with DM over how she reacted the previous year. #1 son was excited and so delightful that weekend. This year, in early spring, I had also bought an 1890s house with 5 acres. DM hated it. I had a horse and some small animals. A huge garden with lots and lots of berry bushes and fruit trees too. Best feature, it was 25 minutes from DM's house. I was only working 1 job, but every spare minute and dollar was taken up with remodeling it with my dad. All that with a small baby. 2 weeks before Christmas, snow is being dumped on us. It wasn't expected to let up. I told DM that I wasn't willing to do any unnecessary driving with #1 son, so I wouldn't be joining her on Christmas Day. I'm also not able to afford gift baskets for her friends. The screaming, yelling, tears, and guilt trips from DM were the stuff of legends. Dad and Granib finally convinced her to cook dinner at my house. That way she would still be hosting. Good one, Dad. Christmas Eve, #1 son and I are home. The animals are content in their barn. Snow's on the ground. Fireplace is going. Lights are twinkling. Music is on. #1 son is 14 months old now. Walking around in his little Santa suit, he is fascinated by the pretty tree, ornaments, and presents. He keeps trying to get to our new cat that's snuggled in the tree branches. She lets him get a hold of her sometimes. I'm packing up the last of the baskets to hand out to my absolutely wonderful neighbors. They help me so much with the harvesting and canning. I feel like I have magic all around. About 10 my neighbors and people from the 200-person town I live in started showing up with gift baskets, food, drinks, and little gifts for #1 son. It turned into its own party as people came and went all day and long into the night. DM and Dad showed up about 6 p.m. to drop off the food for Christmas dinner. I had no room in my fridge or counters. I had to put it in my cellar and outside. Dad starts enjoying the party and food. DM was not happy. DMCBF. I thought you would be alone. And miserable is left unsaid. I thought I would be too. I was having a great day. Then everyone started coming by. It got so much better. Can you believe all this? Isn't it great? DM gave an epic CBF. She stormed off into the living room. She tried to get my dad to leave while he was playing with #1 son. But Dad wasn't willing to. Dad happy as can be. Why would we want to leave? We have our daughter, our grandson, good people, and great food. Isn't that what Christmas is all about? They stayed until after 11 p.m. DM was determined to have a bad time, so she did. She kept trying to host, but no one would let her. She tried hogging #1 son, but either Dad or I would simply take him and hand him off to a new person. She complained about the food. She spent most of the night pouting in the corner of the living room. Nobody paid her any mind. Dad started a new tradition of reading "'Twas the Night Before Christmas" to my son and other sons as they came along because he put him to bed for me. #1 son was wound up. The book was on the nightstand stand. Dad hoped it would calm him down. I adore that picture I took. When they left, DM informed me that they would be here at 6 am to start dinner and watch #1 son open his presents. I had to wait because she got him presents from Santa. I rolled my eyes. Christmas Day, they showed up at 4 p.m. just in time for dinner. DM was very hungover and not in a good mood. She decided to get smashed once she got home. She was upset that I had cooked dinner already and that we had opened presents. Me not having it anymore. No more, DM. If you can't be in a happy mood and have a good time, then go home. I'll bring Dad back later. I'm not having Christmas ruined. DM stood there for a few minutes, trying to figure out if I meant it. She decided to stay and did change her mood. The years that followed. Christmas Eve is at my house. Everyone is welcome. Friends and family and their friends and family come over at any time. The night ends when the last guest leaves. There are Christmas baskets for everyone and goodie bags for each of the kids. Maybe a little present or two tucked away for babies and toddlers. There's plenty of food and drink, music and lights, trees and presents. The magic is there every year. My Christmas baskets now include a variety of foods and drinks. I start baking candy making the day after Thanksgiving and end Christmas Eve morning. I'm up to 30 different cakes, cookies, candies, and 4 specialty drinks. Christmas Day dinner's location depended on the weather. If rain or snow was expected, then it was at my house. I liked those years best. So did my kids. DM never showed up in a bad mood again. My kids, and now Dills and grandson, get the same presents and stocking stuffers that my granib and papa gave us. PJ are called granib hugs. They also get Christmas baskets. They sneak a few to their friends. A few words. I know changing holiday traditions is hard. I know the only reason I started to was because of 10 hours of terror. If it hadn't been for that, it might have taken me more years. I also know I don't regret it. Being at home with my family. Celebrating my way. Picking the traditions that I wanted. The best feeling ever. My kids and their families can't always make it for Christmas or Christmas Eve now. It really is okay. I miss them, but I want them to have their own traditions. I want it to be as magical for them as it is for me. Update. Gorilla Tales. Despicable Ma and My First Home, Part 1. This is the tale of the journey to buy my first home. On a January night after my first Christmas, I was helping my dad in his bar. There was a dart tournament on, and he needed extra help. The bar was pretty much empty when Dad asked me to sit down and talk. He doesn't initiate conversations often, so I was concerned. He wanted me to think about buying a house, especially now that I had a baby. He thought that since I had to move anyways, I was house sitting until May 1st. I should take the jump. Me startled, panicked, and mournfully. I don't think I can. I'm only 20. Who would sell a house to me? I don't know anything about owning a home. I just started working full-time. I just quit 2 jobs. No bank would lend me money after quitting a job. Silent sob. Dad spent the next hour talking to me about why I could. I had been working since I was 10 years old. He would help. I had money saved. My job paid me a base plus commission, and I was good at it. I only had 1 credit card that I kept paid off. No other debts, and my monthly bills were low. And if I got some land with a house, I could stop paying boarding fees for my horse. That money could be used towards the mortgage. I told him I would think about it. I thought about it and thought about it. Neither the dreams of my own home, nor the terror of not being able to do it ever left my mind. I lost sleep. About a week later, I decided to talk to the Despicable Ma and get some much-needed encouragement and advice. Yeah, I know, like that would ever happen. DM mockingly. You can't buy a home. You're not responsible enough to own a home. For God's sake, you just had a bastard child. At the look of horror and disgust on my face, Despicable Ma knew She had just F'd up big time. I couldn't speak. I picked up #1 son, ran out, slamming the door behind me. DM came running behind me, calling out, "I'm sorry, I didn't mean that." She tried to force her way into my house. I lived right next door. But I pushed back with all my anger and got the door closed and locked. She pounded on that door for what seemed like forever, yelling and crying. Thank God #1 son slept through anything. Then she blew up my phone until I unplugged it. She came over a couple of more times, but I didn't answer. Early the next morning, Dad came over alone and asked me what was going on. DM had been up all night crying and saying I hated her. I told him what she said. Dad, pissed to high heaven, growls, "I'll be back later," and stomps out. I don't know what was said exactly, but I could hear him yelling from inside my house. I love that man. Despicable Ma came over every day for a month to tell me she was sorry. I refused to talk to her. One day, she asked me if I would ever forgive her. Me looking her straight in the eye. No, DM. I will never forgive you for calling my son a bastard. Update. To proceed with our story. During this time of not talking to DM, I couldn't be NC as she initiated contact as often as she could. 3-4 times a day, she sent in her flying monkeys. She sent in Granny B and Papa, but they sucked at it. She tried her sister, but I never liked or respected her sister enough to care what she thought. She finally sent in her BFF. Her BFF also happened to be my regional manager, so they both thought she had a good one there. Surprisingly enough, threatening my job didn't make me want to make up with DM. I continued to dither about buying a house during this time. I really was scared of what would happen if I lost my job. But I had been scanning the classifieds for houses and really wanted one. Dad propped me up and convinced me to at least get approved for a loan. Dad had been scouting mortgage rates, so he made some appointments. The big day arrived. We meet up at the first bank. Guess who comes driving in? Anybody? Despicable Ma gets out of her car. I'm pissed. Dad's mad. DM all smiles and happy. I just had to be here for this special occasion. I know you will need my help. I had never spoken to DM about my finances, and I wasn't about to start now. I wouldn't want her there even if I wasn't mad at her. She could keep her nosy nose out of my business. Dad angry and frustrated. Go home. I've got this. Me looking at Dad. Either she goes or I do. I'm not having her here. Dad takes DM aside and talks to her. DM drives off just sobbing about how I'm mean and unfair. Dad and I go into the bank. The mortgage loan officer kept pushing adjustable rate mortgage's arm. Dad kept saying no. I didn't know what the difference was. Guy kept pushing. Dad had us leave. Despicable Ma was waiting outside. DM smiling but trying to sound concerned. Oh, you weren't in there very long. I guess I was right. You don't qualify for a mortgage. I'm so sorry. Just wait 5 years or so and maybe try then. Hard eye roll. Me ignore DM and look at Dad. I'll see you at the next place. And drive off. Dad and I meet up at the next bank. DM is a no-show. Thank all the gods. Numerous hours later, and with severe eye strain from reading all the documents, I walked out of there with a pre-approved mortgage letter and a low interest rate. After doing a major happy dance, Dad took me out to dinner with my son. The next morning, DM corners me at my car and says, I know you're disappointed about not being able to buy a house now. It just wouldn't be good for you. You're much too young to be tied down. I'm only saying this for your own good. I don't say anything back and drive off. I laughed all the way to work. I love that Dad didn't tell her, lol. My tips. Even though ARMs have a lower monthly payment than a regular mortgage, that's only initially. Once interest rates go up, so do your payments. The payments can almost double. Also, read every line of every page on anything you sign. If you don't know something, ask questions until you do understand. If there are things in there you don't like or agree with, then ask them to change it or remove it. If they won't, go someplace else. All contracts are not alike. Update. Drunken idiot. Temp roommate and horrible mill. My neighbor, now called BF, has been a pretty good friend to me, big bro, and #1 son, ever since Hellbeast and her minions left. It's in my post history. He's a nice guy, lives with his parents, but has a drinking problem. He has a GF or whatever the hell they are that is just a prize. Her goal in life is to see just how many terrible life decisions she can make. We'll call her Drunken Idiot Mill Dimmel for short. This story is about her. Background. Dimmel is 56 years old and has been homeless ever since BF's parents kicked her out of their house, never to be able to return again after her second Dewey and fifth drunk and disorderly charge, and I'm sure other antics. About 3 years now. On December 24th and 25th, the coldest 2 days of the year, instead of staying at a homeless shelter or in my spare bedroom, BF asked. We said sure. She decided to sleep in a van in the street. This caused her to get frostbite on both feet. Instead of seeking immediate medical attention, she waited several days, which led to amputation of half of her foot on one foot and all her toes on the other. After several months in medical rehab, She decided she didn't have to follow their rules. She got kicked out after drinking and smoking in her room. I found that out later. BF asked if Dimmel could stay with us until they could find her a permanent place, as she still had an open wound and none of the shelters are clean. I told him the max she could stay was 25 days. I learned the hard way with Hellbeast and her minions. Laid down some rules. On to the story. About 6 days after Dimmel arrived, I got a text from #1 son. A simple hi. I responded back with the same. In our speak, that text said, "Hi. I'm doing good. No need to worry. Just was thinking about you. Do you need anything?" Dimmel saw my wide smile and asked about it. I showed her the text. Instant rampage on her part. Why did he send only that? Why hasn't he come over? Why doesn't he call more? Blah blah blah. I gave up explaining that my son is an adult with his own family and life, and I'm perfectly happy with that contact. She talked over me, launching into a tirade about her Dill. Dimmel calls her son every day, but her Dill only allows her to talk to him every so often. I'm his mother. I chose him. He's adopted. She can't keep me from him. She was just passing things. He will love me forever. I don't put up with her trying to control him. I'll call him every day if I want to. I fight for my child. Rant, rant, rant. I get her to calm down somewhat. Ask her some questions about her son. Dimmel said he was 22. Been married 1 year. They eloped, so she didn't even get to see them married. Rant, rant, rant. Son and Dill were high school sweethearts, but Dill fs anything that moves. Dill has 2 children, but Dimmel just knows that neither are sons. And now, the rest of the story. And some truth. A couple of days later, BF, Big Bro, and I were going to pick up some stuff. And I asked BF about Dimmel's son. I'm thinking she needs to stay with his son. BF tells me that son is 29 years old. Been married 4 years to my childhood sweetheart. They had a wedding, but Dimmel wasn't invited. Police would be called if she showed. Dill has been NC with Dimmel for 4 years, and his son has been NC for 2 years. BF knows that son has at least 2 kids, but Dimmel had never seen them. Dill refused to allow her to. Dimmel does call and email son every day, but son doesn't answer. BF has called son and Dill several times, but they won't talk to him either. BF thinks that son should be in Dimmel's life regardless of whatever abuse she put him through. BF is a major FM. Or he was tired of her abuse too. She's a mean drunk. Which brings us to 2 days ago. Day 12 of her stay with us. Dimmel simply can't follow some simple rules, i.e. no getting drunk, no throwing things, no friends over, no taking my stuff. I kicked her out. I honestly don't care that she still has an open wound and has to go to a homeless shelter. It's not like she's been trying to find a place. That's her problem. Son, and Dill wherever you may be. I took one for the team, so follow my advice. Maintain NC. Keep this wretched woman out of your life. She's never going to change. Update. The longest pregnancy in history. I want to tell you about my youngest son's grandmother, YSGM. Please come up with a name for her. The ones I use are not appropriate for public, and barley for private. While this first story takes place 28 years ago, it still fills me with disgust, irritation, and a bit of humor. It's long because I don't do short. Long before I even met youngest son's father YSF, I was dating someone I had known for years. We decided to break up because he was a Marine and being deployed overseas for 2 years. We're still friends all these years later, so it wasn't a bad breakup at all. 6 months later, I met YSF. 4 months later, I was pregnant with my youngest son. I was actually pretty happy about it, except for expecting a SHT storm from my family. I will note here that after I had my oldest son, I was given less than a 5% chance of ever getting pregnant again. What I was not expecting was the SHT storm from his family. Namely his mother. That's a story in and of itself. Actually, many stories. During my baby shower, another SHT show, when I was 6 months pregnant, Big Bro mentions to me that he heard from an ex-boyfriend/friend, and he was coming home on leave in the next month. Ex-friend is also a friend of Big Bro's. Big Bro, I and a few other family members discuss it, make plans, etc. Well, unbeknownst to me, YSGM heard us talking. Somehow, in her little mind, she decides that her son wasn't the father of my baby, but my ex-boyfriend is. At 6 months pregnant, I just topped 105 pounds. I barely have a baby bump. So naturally, over the next month, she starts bombarding him at work with phone calls, insisting him he needs to dump me because I'm using him. The baby is not his. He's being a chump, etc. YSGM calls his friends and family, telling them this BS, and they believed it, so they bombard him too. Well, the Dunbars YSF started believing mommy, because mommy doesn't lie or make up stories. Yeah, right. He didn't ask me or talk to me about it. He just started getting high and drunk all the time and starting fights. Ex-friend arrives in town as planned. YSF, my oldest son, and I go over to Big Bro's house for a party for him. YSF meets ex-boyfriend/friend. He teases me about carrying a Goodyear blimp in my dress. At this point, I am very obviously pregnant. I literally ballooned up in the last month. Everything is good. Everyone is having fun, even YSF. YSF takes off about 3 hours into the party. I didn't hear from him again for 3 days. He finally shows up with YSGM. That shift head came into my home in front of my 3-year-old son and started screaming at me. How dare you force my son to face the man who got me pregnant and make a fool out of him? I have no idea what the hell they're talking about. YSF joined in. Both of them proceeded to call me everything but human. They made several threatening gestures. YSGM clawed my arm up and pushed me into a door frame really hard when I told them to get out. They refused to leave until YSF heard my son, in hysterics, on the phone with the police and sirens coming closer. I thank God for the police every day because I honestly don't know what would have happened if they hadn't come when they did. Not only did they save me from crazy, but they rushed me to the hospital when I went into early labor while talking to them. One officer even waited at my house with my son until my dad could get there. So amazing. I spent 2 days in the hospital while the doctor tried to stop my labor. I finally get discharged and arrive home to a completely empty home. They took everything, my home, that I bought. All my furniture, food, clothing, towels, bedding, my son's furniture, clothing and toys, and my baby's crib and clothes. Everything. They even took my phone. After I got over my shock, I drove over to the grocery store and called my dad. Daddy got pissed. Daddy picked up Big Bro at work, then ex-boyfriend or friend, and they all went hunting. About 4 hours later, they arrived back at my home with a full U-Haul. They were wonderful enough to unload it for me. A few neighbors came over to help them and keep me calm. I did notice several boxes of clothing, pictures, books, and tools accidentally got dumped into the pig's pen. But Dad told me not to worry about it, so I didn't. Dad told me later that the U-Haul was rented under YSGM's name and was sitting in front of her house. She decided to let my dad have the U-Haul once the police informed her that if any of my property was in there, she would be arrested for grand theft. That probably wouldn't have looked too good since she worked for the Attorney General. My beautiful youngest son was born 3 weeks late in the middle of July. He weighed a total of 6 pounds, half Oz. After the longest pregnancy in history, YSGM claimed he was his ex-boyfriend's baby until the paternity test came back showing YSF was the father. Then she started saying her youngest son looks just like YSF. Head, desk, update. YSGM, Despicable Ma, and the birth of my youngest son. He's defective. Trigger warning. This is messed up. If you are pregnant, please consider not reading. We have a name for YSGM, Vicious Vivian. It's her name, and she's a vicious bee. This was 28 years ago. While some people in my family know the full story, most don't. Definitely not my youngest son or his wife. At this point, I'm good with them finding out. As I mentioned in my last post, I went into preterm labor, but was able to stop it. Well, from that time until 2 weeks before my due date, I went into preterm labor at least once a week. The doctor was able to stop it each time. The doctor wanted to keep the baby brewing for as long as possible, as he was measuring very small. Hence why I went 3 weeks late. The day I had him, I had an ultrasound at 2:30 p.m. I was told it might be another week. I wasn't really thrilled, but okay. I was really tired of being pregnant. At 4 p.m., I pulled into my driveway and got my first contraction. I didn't even make it out of my car before the next one hit. I called Despicable Ma so she could come get oldest son. She called an ambulance. The ambulance got me to the hospital at 4:46 p.m. A police officer took my oldest son to my dad. My beautiful baby was born at 4:56 p.m. with no heartbeat, breath, or movement. The doctor looked at me and said, "You need to start praying." I did, so hard, and watched the clock as they started working on him. At 5:01 p.m., I stopped praying. I knew brain death started at 4 minutes, and it was past that. My son hadn't breathed yet. No heartbeat. I started to cry. At 5:03 p.m., he took his first breath. I was able to look at him and touch his hand before they rushed him to NICU. He looked like a little monkey. So skinny 6 pounds, half Oz, and so long 22. After I was cleaned up, I was put into a room. No one would tell me anything about my baby. Nothing. After an hour, I got out of bed and went to NICU. They wouldn't let me in or tell me anything still. I paced outside those doors all night. At some point, I don't know when exactly Despicable Ma showed up. Following behind her, Vicious Vivian and YSF. Despicable Ma called them. Yep, just what I needed. Vivi wanted to see the child. YSF didn't give a damn. Despicable Ma was all, "Isn't this great? We can all enjoy this. Seriously, WTF." All I could say was, "Get out," over and over again anytime someone spoke to me. I had no desire to deal with any BS they wouldn't leave. More and more people started to arrive. YSF's friends and siblings, Despicable Ma's friends. And I don't know who else. I remember finally screaming, "Get the F out," over and over again until my dad showed up and got all of them the F out. At this point in my life, I felt comfortable saying damn in front of elders and my parents, but nothing else. So this is huge for me. I continued pacing at the NICU doors. For hours. Still no word. Nothing. I don't know what time it was when a resident pediatrician finally came out to talk to me. That rat bastard insisted I had been on drugs while pregnant. Otherwise, my son wouldn't be so small. No matter what I said, he didn't believe me. He told me it was my fault my son was going to die. I punched him in the mouth, pulled out a clump of my hair, threw it at him, and told him to test it. I told him that the last time I did anything was pot back in 1979. Since this was 1990, I was pretty sure it was out of my system. He called security. Security put me in lockdown in my room. I called my dad, crying hysterically. Dad arrived with Despicable Ma. After I told them what happened, Despicable Ma started reaming me out for yelling at the doctor and hitting him. I start yelling, "Get out." Dad tells her to shut up or get out. She shut up. Dad calls the hospital administrator and tells him to get his butt up here. Once the administrators arrived, my dad explained what was going on. The administrator left and came back half-hour later. The pediatrician had been fired from my son's case. I don't know if he was fired from the hospital, but I never saw him again. He confirmed to DM that I had not been doing any drugs. I was finally told that my son was in critical condition and not expected to live. I wasn't allowed to see him because of that. I fell apart. Despicable Ma got up and left. Dad called Granny B to come be with me. I was removed from lockdown. I immediately went back to NICU and stayed there. I refused to leave. I refused medical care. Granab arrived. Thank God. She got me to get medical care. Sleep when I needed it. She handled everything. She got them to let me see my baby. A sight I'll never forget. He had lost over 1.5 pounds. So tiny. Wires. Tubes. Huge monitors. A nightmare sight. I could see his eyes. Beautiful gray. I couldn't touch him. That's what it was like the first week. At 10 days, I was finally able to hold my son. Nurse him. Change his diaper. That's when I found out Despicable Ma would call VV or YSF and let them know when I was gone from the hospital. That's also when I found out Vicious Vivian had forged my signature and had my son, who was fighting for his life, circumcised. Not for religious reasons either. Just because she wanted it done and I didn't. I still can't believe that the doctor did that. I was furious. I banned them all from the hospital. Dad, Granab, and Big Bro nailed Despicable Ma's hide to the wall. Big Bro took my oldest son to his house to stay until my youngest son was able to leave the hospital. That way, DM didn't know when I was gone. Granny B had to leave at the end of week 2 to take care of my grandpa, who was in the hospital. She said she would come back if needed. At the end of week 3, the new pediatrician sat with me while I was holding my baby. He told me that they ran tests, and he believes that my youngest son would be brain damaged, blind, deaf, and basically have an infant's needs for the rest of his life. He strongly recommended that I place my son in a state facility, as I was a single mother. I honestly don't know what shocked me most. I told him to go to hell and proceeded to rock my baby and cry. 6 days later, my son got to come home. I was thrilled. Despicable Ma picked me up from the hospital. Dad was up on the fire line. She was very excited and talkative. On our way over to Big Bro's house, she made a wrong turn. A few minutes later, we were at Vicious Vivian's house. I was pissed. I refused to go in. She refuses to leave until I do. A lot of low-level yelling occurred baby in the car. I finally agree to go in. DM knocks. Vicious Vivian opens the door. I walk in. YSF is there, watching TV, refusing to look at me or his son. I set my son's chair on the floor. DM and VV start chattering. I stayed quiet, just wanting the visit over with. VV finally asks me if the doctors had made any determination on my son's health. I told her what the pediatrician said. Vicious Vivian stands up and coldly says, "He's defective. You can leave now," and opens the door. I grab the car seat and walk out. DM followed. I coldly told her not to ever pull that SHT on me again, or ever talk to me about Vicious Vivian, YSF, or rights again. I wish I could say this was the end of Vicious Vivian, but it's not. I also wish I could say I went NC with Despicable Ma right then, but I didn't. That was 3 days later, and another SHT storm. Physically and mentally, my youngest son is perfectly fine. He's as smart as can be, plays 5 instruments, has a beautiful wife and son, and is in the Navy. Update. Vicious Vivian. Paranoia is a good thing. I'm going to preface this story by telling you that I chose not to say negative things about YSF or any of his family members, including Vicious Vivian. I've never told him the stories, except in very edited versions where I felt someone would get hurt if I didn't warn him. Flashback. The first time I met Vicious Vivian was after I became pregnant. She asked us over to dinner. I was sitting right next to YSF as he said okay. But I am allergic to all fish and seafood. Can only eat well-done meat. And since I became pregnant, I'm pretty much living on breakfast foods, salads, and white bread. Cool, she gets it. The menu she served for that night was prime rib rare, salad with baby shrimp in it, mashed potatoes, and rye bread. She loaded the plates. She was very put out that I only ate mashed potatoes. I still got violently sick after eating. The next meal was basically the same. My morning sickness had passed, but I became violently sick again. And this is where I got paranoid. There was no reason for me to have gotten that sick. None. The third and last time I ever ate at her house or any food from her. The menu was the tuna, shrimp salad, a pasta dish, and rolls. Again, she loaded the plates. I very quickly switched plates with Asa. Any guesses on who got sick? Yep, he did. To the point that he had to be hospitalized. Good thing I'm paranoid. I did tell him what I did. He got pissed at me because I switched plates. So, yeah. Flash forward 22 years. I'm living in the land of sunshine. My youngest son recently got married to a beautiful Dill. She's pregnant. Both are in the Navy and stationed in the other land of sunshine, 3,000 miles away from me. The youngest son and Dill got leave for December that year and decided to introduce the other to their families in their home state. Dill is also from the same state. Weird, but cute coincidence. One day, my youngest son and Dill called me on speakerphone to tell me how the visits were going. I'm getting a few laughs in. Then the youngest son mentions that Dill keeps getting violently sick every time she eats at Vicious Vivian's house. Oh boy. I try to casually say that the same thing happened to me without going into specifics. My youngest son is quick to figure out where I was going with this and got pissed. No way would Vivi ever do anything like that. He hung up on me. A few days later, my youngest son and Dill call me again. He apologized for yelling, hanging up, and telling me their story. Him and Dill went to breakfast at Vicious Vivian's house the day before. Dill, being leery after what I said, switches plates with Vicious Vivian, unbeknownst to her. Well, folks, Vicious Vivian had to be hospitalized after becoming violently sick. Rushed there in an ambulance. That's when the youngest son found out that grandma wasn't as nice as he thought. They don't eat at her house anymore. They won't eat anything she sends, even if it's wrapped and from the manufacturer. They won't let her even hand food to their child, even at a restaurant. Paranoia is a good thing. I love my Dill. Update. Vicious Vivian versus Granny. Backstory. Due to Despicable Ma's antics, Vicious Vivian and youngest son's father YSF are in mine and my youngest son's lives. We had a very well written out custody visitation agreement that only I seem to follow. Story for another day. Custody agreement. I got Christmas Day. YSF got Christmas Eve from 5 p.m. to 9 p.m. I had first right of refusal if YSF was unable or unwilling to take the youngest son. The first 2 years of the custody agreement, Christmas landed on YSF weekend. YSF, being the jerk that he was, refused to let his youngest son come home. The third year, 1995, was on my weekend. On with our story. As I said in other posts, I love Christmas. It really is my favorite time of year. I was really looking forward to that year because not only were my youngest son 5 years old and stepson 15-year-old going to be home, but Granib and Papa were joining us for the first time. I went all out for my Christmas Eve party. We had the biggest tree, fully decked out. Lights everywhere. Stockings for everyone, including Granib, Papa, Despicable Ma, Dad, Big Bro, his family, his bio sister, and her family, hung on the fireplace mantle. My sons had made an adorable snowless manger in the front yard. Mostly it was my stepson who did it. He's an incredible artist. Music played all the time. So much food prepared and waiting. Goodie baskets done up all pretty. We even decorated the barn with a small tree, lights, and stockings for all the animals. We were all excited. We were ready for our Christmas Eve open house. A week before Christmas, YSF called me. YSF. I'm picking up my youngest son at noon on the 24th. Me. Nope. The agreement says 5 p.m. You can pick him up then. YSF. I can't get him then. I'll be there at noon. Then you can't get him. It's 5 p.m. or nothing. Your choice. Now some of you might think this is harsh. It's not. I had learned in the preceding years to go by the letter of the agreement or regret it. YSF and VV made my and my youngest son's lives hell trying to work around it. Christmas Eve. I woke up extra early 5 in the morning to finish setting up, get breakfast in the oven, start a fire, and turn on music. I knew friends and family would come early. The youngest son Wise and oldest son OS woke up in time to help me with the animals. The most adorable sight in life is watching children make Christmas happen for all the animals too. They brought out all the wrapped presents and pictures they had made for each and every animal and placed them under the barn tree. Mommy, they have to have Christmas love too, so heart-melting. At 7:30 a.m., Granny B and Papa arrived. I settled them by the tree. Papa has had numerous strokes, So I was very careful that he could be included but safe. All my boys are hugging them, waiting on them hand and foot, and sitting close to them. Papa starts telling his stories with the kids listening intently. My grandparents are my son's favorite people in the world. So much joy in my heart watching them. And the party begins. Not long after everyone else in the family arrives. Friends and neighbors come in and out. Granny B and Papa are handing out the gift baskets like they did when I was little. They were so tickled to be asked to do it. People are laughing and singing, eating and drinking. Children are in and out. Even Despicable Ma is even joining in on all the fun. 1 p.m. Suddenly Wise runs into the house screaming, "No, no, no, I want to stay. It's my Christmas with you, don't make me go." And he wraps his arms around me. "Please, Mommy, make him go away." I look outside to see what he's talking about, and there is YSF in my driveway. I hand Wise off to Granib, because she has a magical way with kids, and go outside. YSF gets out of his truck and demands Wise. And the arguments begin. YSF starts cussing and calling me names. Behind me, my husband, Dad, Big Brother, and Papa with my stepson, helping him come out. My dad steps up. "Boy, you're drunk. You have 2 choices. Leave now, and we don't call the cops and tell them you're driving drunk again. Or, we kick your arse. Nail your butt to your truck and call the police. Which one is it going to be? I love the men in my family." YSF continues to scream and cuss, but he gets into his truck and leaves. I turn around and hug everyone. Thank them profusely. I go inside. Wise is just fine. Granny B had worked her magic on him. The party continued on with hardly a blip over the scene. 6:30 p.m. I was in the kitchen when I heard Wise screaming, "No, no, no." I run into the living room to find Vicious Vivian pulling my Wise out the door. OS is holding on to Wise's arm and kicking at Vicious Vivian. That drunk bee walked into my home and, without saying anything to anyone, just grabbed Wise and tried to leave with him. It literally stunned everyone else to shocking stillness. My dad shook it off and took my son from her and held him tight to him. Before I could say or do anything, Granib stood up and said, "I don't know you or how you were raised, but good people do not try to kidnap a child from their home. Especially not at Christmas. Now get out." She knew who Vivi was. Vivi swaying and smelling like beer. I'm his grandmother, and I can take him if I want. He's supposed to be with me tonight. That bee stopped my son, but she won't stop me. Granib's soft but stern tone. A true grandmother would never endanger or scare their grandchild. A true grandmother would love that child enough to show dignity, compassion, care, and respect. You do none of those things. You are a disgrace to grandmothers everywhere. You are not taking my great-grandson anywhere in your condition. You've interrupted us enough. Now you will leave. Then Granib takes Vicious Vivian's arm firmly and escorts her to her car. My stepson and Big Bro followed. The rest of us are inside and watch as she actually leaves without saying anything. We all break out laughing. Granib came inside, dusting off her hands, sits gracefully down, and says, "Someone should really call the police and let them know she's drunk." Despicable Ma, for once acted appropriately, made the call herself. The party continued on long into the night and Christmas Day. Papa and Granib filled everyone's stockings with their traditional gifts. An orange, a lifesaver's book, a candy cane, and a wooden toy handmade by Papa. Papa helped my sons unwrap and hand out all the presents to the barn animals. He told me that this Christmas was just like they had on their farm. Granib made most of the breakfast and dinner because it made her happy. I don't know how she does it, but it tasted like heaven. It was all so wonderful. I found out a few days later that YSF arrived. But my husband and Big Bro got him to leave without me or Wise even knowing he was there. This was Papa's last Christmas. As my wife said, it was the bestest Christmas ever. Update. Despicable Ma, you're a terrible mother. One thing Despicable Ma and I always disagreed on was my parenting decisions. She disapproved of everything I did. Our biggest fights, however, were having the kids do chores. DM. It's mean, it's unethical, it's cruel. You're a terrible parent. Now personally, I found this to be extremely hypocritical of her, since I used to have to clean the house, do the laundry, and cook my own meals from the time I was 4 or 5 years old until I moved out. So, anyway, my sons had chores. They had chores that they had to do as part of the family. Clean their rooms, pick up their toys, clean their bathroom, do dishes, take care of their own garden spot, 4-8 garden spot that they could grow anything they wanted on or not, and feed the animals, etc. Then they had chores that they got an allowance for. Vacuuming, dusting, mowing the front lawn, cleaning the barn, canning/freezing/drying food, weeding, etc. They didn't have to do those chores, but they only got an allowance for what they did. Yeah, I know, I'm awful. It was the summer of 1993, and my stepson SS13 Rio decided he wanted to earn some more money. The allowance wasn't enough to cover some of the things he wanted. Okay, cool. We talk about some of the things he can do since he can't legally work. He decides on mowing lawns. He'll rent our mower for $10. a week which got put into his savings account, pay for the gas himself, and make his own business cards. We discussed what he was going to charge as lawns in our area could be as big as 5 acres. SS decided to do. I'll let them decide. That way they will feel like they're getting a good deal. SS is smart and naive sometimes. I was also teaching him how to run a business. At the end of the first week, SS had 4 lawns to mow and was getting from $5 to $35 for the yards plus tips and cookies and drinks. So far, so good. Well, OS 6-year-old heard cookies and drinks, and he wanted in on the program. He asked me, and I told him he would have to ask SS as it was his business, not mine. SS agreed to let him come along to weed the yards, but he wasn't going to pay him. OS had to work for cookies and drinks, and maybe a tip now and then. That was good enough for OS. At the end of the first day, SS and OS come home tired but excited. They have 3 more lawns to do. SS got paid $15 to $40 per lawn and got tips too. US got $20 in tips plus some great cookies and brownies. He gave the brownies to Wise since he couldn't work. At the end of the second and third days, same thing. More lawns, great tips, and lots of goodies. I was getting calls from my neighbors telling me what a good job they were doing and how sweet they both are. Can we say, Awawa? That Friday, Despicable Ma calls. She wants to take all the kids the next day for some activity or another. I tell her fine, great. But it would have to be after their chores, and I would have to see what lawns SS and OS agreed to do, and if they had other plans. Despicable Ma hangs up on me without saying anything. Okay, I know what that means. I tell my husband to take Wise, pick up SS and OS from their jobs when they're done, and go out to eat. He kisses me, tells me he'll come home if I need him, and runs out the door. He's seen our fights before and hates when I'm getting attacked. But he knows I want to keep the kids out of the fire line. I call my dad and tell him what's going on. He tells me he's on his way. He knows it's going to be bad when DM wants an in-person confrontation. She's been known to throw things, usually at my head. I pour a glass of wine. Okay, I poured 2, turn on some music, and wait for DM to arrive. Tires squeal as she pulls into my driveway. She slams on the brakes, which stops her car on my beautiful lawn while running through a flower bed. Pissed me right the F off. Slams her car door. Damn near rips my screen door off and proceeds to scream at me. I can't believe you. How can you do that to your children? You're running a child labor camp. You're an abusive piece of SHT. I should just beat you to death. I should take those children from you. Despicable Ma stopped speaking. She knew she went too far. She knew it by the look on my face. I didn't say a word. I just stood there and looked at her. My dad showed up a few minutes later. Once he entered the house, I looked at him and said in the calmest and scariest voice he's ever heard. So he told me later. Get her out of here. Now. I don't want to see her or speak to her in the foreseeable future. If I see her or she calls me, she won't like the results. I will expect her to reimburse me for the damage she did to my lawn and flower bed. Thank you for your help. Goodbye. I turned and walked into the kitchen to pour myself another glass of wine. I heard my dad walk her out. My dad came back in and called my name. I turned around and looked at him. Shook my head. He left. Flying monkeys in the form of her family and friends came zooming out of the woodwork within an hour. I hung up on every one of them. Several times. Granib called, and I told her I couldn't talk about it. I was too mad. She let me know she loved me. That I was a good mother, and was doing right for my boys. That I would be okay. My husband can be home later that night. I couldn't even talk to him about it then. It took me a month. He got almost as mad as I was. A week later, Despicable Ma pulled into my driveway. I walked out to the front porch with a shotgun raised and cocked. She backed out like a bat out of hell. Granib disbelieving. Missy Ann, her nickname for me. Did you point a gun at your mother? I was aiming at her new car. Do me a favor and tell her she still owes me for my grass and flower bed. And now she owes me for a new mailbox too. Oh, tell her to stay the hell away too. Granib clearly exasperated. Missy Ann, you cannot pull a shotgun on your mother or her car. Promise, and I'll tell her. Me. Okay, Granny. Love you. My dad called me laughing. Despicable Ma showed up the next weekend. This time I walked out to the front porch with my bow and arrow drawn. Damn bee hit my new mailbox on her way out. Granib calmly. Your mother said something very terrible to you, didn't she? So terrible you can't talk about it. Me leery. Yes. Granib edgy tone. Okay, I promise you your mother won't show up at your home again until she's invited. You have to promise not to point sharp objects or things that go boom at her if you see her. I'll even make sure she pays for the newest mailbox she ran over, plus the old one, the lawn and flower bed. I agreed. I didn't tell her that my husband took away my key to the gun cabinet and locked up my bows, arrows, and pretty knives. He didn't let me have them back until I calmed down. Yeah, that took a while. It took me a good year to get over what she said. All letters and gifts were returned to the sender. Neither I nor my husband or kids spoke to Despicable Ma or her flying monkeys the entire time. We did see my dad. They appealed to Granib, but she told everyone that they and DM made their bed, and now they all had to lay in it. My SS made $6,500 that summer. My OS made $2,700 that summer plus goodies and drinks. But I'm a terrible mom. Update. Despicable Ma. Papa's Funeral Part 1. This story is hard for me to remember and write about. It does showcase why I adored my Granib and Papa my grandfather. It also is a perfect example of Despicable Ma's just no. Backstory. My papa loved to tell stories. They were lessons in life and love. I loved listening to them, as did my sons. At 20 years old, wanting to remember them, I started recording them. Granib and Papa's story is told by Papa, as recorded. It was a pretty spring morning. I was driving into the big town to pick up some supplies. On the way there, I saw the most beautiful girl walking. I stopped my truck right there in the middle of the road and stared at her until she turned onto the path to school. It was love at first sight. That afternoon I raced to the school. I didn't want to miss her. I waited for that beautiful girl to come out, and I followed her home. The next morning, I finished my chores up early. I cleaned myself up and drove to that girl's house. I watched and waited until she left for school again, then gathered my courage and knocked on the door. It was opened by her mother. "Your great-grandma." I told her my name, that I was smitten with one of her daughters and would like to meet her. Well, your great-grandma didn't think I could be very smitten, or I would at least know the name of the girl, and she wasn't about to introduce one of her daughters to just anyone. She told me I had to prove myself. Every morning and night, after I finished doing my chores at home and working, I would go over to your great-grandma's farm and do chores there. I'll tell you what, that woman was a taskmaster. She had me doing everything and anything. But I was determined. Finally, after 3 weeks, your great-grandma told me to come over the next afternoon for lemonade. The next day, I was nervous as can be. I dressed in my Sunday best and drove over there. Your great-grandma opened the door and ushered me in. Sitting there was your grandma in a pretty pink flowered dress, just as beautiful as ever. I knew right then I was going to marry her. So that's how your great-grandma introduced me to my future bride. I went out the next day and bought a piece of land that I'd had my eye on. I spent the next year building your grandma a house and courting her. I married her a week after her 18th birthday. The only thing I regret was never being able to afford the blue Davenport that she always wanted. Flash forward. The last few years of Papa's life were not good. He had had numerous strokes and was mostly in a wheelchair, unless he had support walking. He used to say that if he had a key, he would turn off his heart. He did get joy from seeing his beautiful wife, children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren. The last 6 months of his life, 1996, were a blessing and a curse. He had several serious strokes. He couldn't recognize us most of the time, but there would be glimmers of when he did. Most of the time, his mind had taken him to the year he met Granny B. Every day, with her sitting beside him, he would build their farmhouse in his mind and tell her about it. Every board, nail, and brick. When he was done, they chose each piece of furniture, bedding, and linen. He surprised her with moving in a dark blue velvet Davenport. She didn't think he would remember her wanting one. He died late that night with Granny B by his side. His last words were, "I love you, Granny B." They were together 55 years. Early in the morning, Granib called Despicable Ma, then me, and told us the news. I didn't take it well. After I calmed down, I told my sons. They didn't take it well either. We hugged, cuddled, remembered, and cried until they fell asleep from emotions. During this, DM blasted my phone. My DH answered every call calmly until he finally unplugged the damn thing. While my son napped, I called her back. That was a mistake. I told her what had been going on. DM angry. They can't possibly be more upset than I am. He was my father. They are just children, and have just lost one of their favorite people. Show a little compassion. DM whining. I need compassion too. Sniff sniff. Well, for some stupid reason, I agreed to drive with DM down to Granny B's house that night. My husband and sons would come down in 3 days. This next part really pissed me off. Despicable Ma arrived at my house, all smiles. No red or puffy eyes. She chatters with the kids as I pack up the car. All the while driving, she's chatty, singing with the music, telling me to lighten up. For 4.5 hours. Thank God she's a lead foot, or it would have been longer. As soon as she walks into Granny B's door, DM falls on her and starts bawling. DM is literally hanging onto Granib, acting like she can't hold herself up. Uncle 2 pulls DM off and guides her to the couch. Her sister, not to be outdone, starts wailing. I'm looking at both of them with disgust. I open my mouth, and Granib shoots me a look. I don't say anything. Just grab a cup of coffee and go outside after giving Granib a hug and kiss. When I go back inside, everyone is discussing funeral plans. My input wasn't wanted, so I just kind of listened. Until DM. My name and bio sister will help with that too. Me confused. What am I helping with? DM irritated. You really should listen when adults are speaking. You're helping dress Papa. I've been an adult for a long time. It even says so on my driver's license. What do you mean, dress Papa? Granab sends me a small smile and goes to her room. DM. Don't be a smartarse. Her sister lectures me about being respectful to elders, then goes on to explain how in the LDS church, it's tradition for the woman in the deceased family to prepare and dress the body. After repeating, "No way, I'm not doing that," 100 times and them arguing using church doctrines and family tradition, I finally said, "I'm not LDS. I don't care if it's traditional. There is no way I'm doing that." And walked out and stayed in a hotel that night. The next day, Granab nixed anyone dressing Papa, but the funeral home. I was very relieved. She also got them to agree that I could be one of the speakers. The day of the funeral, Despicable Ma picked me up early to help with the flowers she paid for and set up for the funeral and wake. This next part, I'm having trouble writing because it was so horrendous and long, so I'm putting it in its own post, which will be done soon. By the time the funeral started, I was an emotional wreck because of what happened on top of it being Papa's funeral. I couldn't stop the shudders and tears. My husband, thank you all, agreed to go up to the podium with me. Because Papa was so well loved and had a large family and numerous friends, there were 25 speakers. There was so much laughter through the tears from the stories. He truly was an amazing man. When my turn to speak came, my sons went over to sit with Granny B. DM, not getting enough attention, tried to get them to sit with her by hissing very loudly. She literally had over 300 sets of eyes on her, while she made a spectacle of herself. My sons just ignored her and sat at Granny B's feet. Granab had to tell her to hush up to get her to stop. DM had a CBF for the rest of the funeral. At the podium with my husband, I started my speech, but couldn't finish. My husband continued on for me, then played the recording of Papa meeting Granny B. The story above. Granab laughed all the way through that recording. At the wake, Granab and several others asked me for a copy. I told her I'd be happy to give her one. My husband and sons kindly left escaped right then to go make her one. Despicable Ma loudly exclaimed to everyone that she knew she was Papa's favorite, but that I never asked him for stories about her. That I was jealous of her relationship with Papa, just like Granny B was. WTF DM continued to degrade me and say snide things about me the rest of the wake. Thank all that my darling husband bought 2 bottles of wine for me and a bottle of Bailey's Irish Cream for Granab that night. According to Granab, her bottle must have only been half full because it was gone after only 2 glasses. DM and her siblings yelled at me for getting Granab drunk again and for not giving them the recordings I made of Papa. According to them, since I'm not LDS Mormon, I shouldn't have any family records. That's for the true family. A few days after we were home, Despicable Ma went into my home when no one was there and tried to steal them. But my dog, Mackie, cornered her and wouldn't let her leave. Lucky for her, I came home early. Lucky for her, I didn't call the police. She left without the recordings. I did change my house locks. Mackie got a huge bone. Only my sons have a copy of the recordings, and they have refused to make a copy of them for anyone else. Not even DM. Update. Jan Mill in the wild. No wedding for you. This happened several years ago, but it's been rattling around in my head lately, so I thought I'd share. Many moons ago, my friend's son and F-Dill decided to get married. They were in their early 40s and had both been married or divorced before, but neither had had a grand wedding. They decided to do it upright, especially since they could afford it. Introducing Mel, son's mother. She looks like an old bird, harps on everything like a bird pecking, and whose breath could knock out Satan himself. She doesn't approve of F-Dill. No real reason. F-Dill is a lovely woman with a good heart. PB just didn't like her. The old bat. Son told Mill that, after 5 years together, he proposed and F-Dill accepted. It's too soon. You don't know what you're doing. F-Dill isn't the right woman for you. She's been divorced. She'll divorce you and take everything you have. Son, who takes no crap from anyone, immediately tells Mill she's not invited to the wedding and not to contact him until she can apologize directly to F-Dill and treat F-Dill right. Wedding plans proceed. Vendors booked. They asked me to be the day of coordinator because I've handled a lot of parties in my time. All is good. Mill tries crying, throwing fits, and a few faux apologies. Son wasn't having it. Mill, realizing she wasn't going to get her way, finalizes a full sincere apology to both Son and F-Dill. To make amends, Mill offers to pay for the flowers, cater, and bring Son's childhood pastor down with her. When she comes, the pastor can't drive himself or fly from out of state. Isn't she just the sweetest thing? The crafty old bee. Mill was supposed to have arrived in town a week before the wedding, but due to her husband getting ill, she didn't get to town until late 11 p.m. The night before the rehearsal, Without the pastor. Mill. Oh, he couldn't make it. She even had a fantastic surprise for the bride and groom. She had canceled all their wedding plans and decided to have the wedding in their backyard. Everything. Church, reception hall, florist, catering, cake, linens, photographer, DJ, everything. Isn't that a better idea? Won't this be so much fun? I even brought the flowers with me, so we don't have to worry about those. Folks, she brought weeds. Not dried flowers, actual flipping weeds. Fdil goes into shock and panic, and pretty much stays there for the next 24 hours. Son gets infuriated, throws Mill out, into the cold of night all on her own, and goes into panic. Son calls me at 5 a.m., knowing that I'm an early riser, and asks me to come over without telling me what happened. I can hear Fdil crying in the background, so I knew it wasn't good. When I get there, Mill rushes to me and grabs on tight. She slept in her van. Mill faux crying. I don't know what I did wrong. You have to get him to talk to me. I was only trying to make this fun and save them money. I yell out Son's name a few times. I'm getting scared because I have no idea who this woman is. Son comes out, pries her off, and tells her to effing leave before I call the cops, and hustles me into the house. This shocks me a bit because in all the years I've known this guy, I've never heard him once cuss. Not even damn or hell. Once inside, Son tells me what happened. Son and Fdil are positive that there is no way to pull off a wedding in under 29 hours for 100 guests and have it be nice. At 8 in the morning, we call vendors. We were able to get the church again along with their pastor, but all other vendors refused. All payments lost. So much for saving money. At 9, Son and I start calling friends and family to come help. 14 people were able to show up during the day, including my son and his fiancée. Another 30 showed that night. By 1, everything was set and ready for a beautiful church wedding and backyard reception. Their wedding was perfect, and the reception even better. Mill stayed in her van across the street from their house the entire time. Most people flipped her off whenever she tried to talk to them to hear her side. Mill was never heard from again. Any flying monkey was shot down in flight. Update. Despicable Ma, I can't take him anywhere. Background. I've always been a very private person. So private that if I wasn't anonymous on Reddit, I never would have written any of my stories. Ever. I still also keep all but the most trusted people at arm's length. Part of the reason is because I was ashamed of the abuse I suffered. Part of it was because DM and others used everything and everyone to hurt me. They can't use what they don't know. In the summer of 1980, I was all 14 years old and staying with Granny B and Papa. I was extremely withdrawn, to the point of only saying, yes, no, fine, and refusing to see any family. Well, my grandparents put up with this for 2 weeks. Then one day over breakfast, Papa told me I needed